And we're just going to check that. We should be live now. Can everyone, hello, good evening, everybody. Can I get a couple of hellos in the comments just to see that we're live and everything seems to be going to plan? Can everyone, hello, good evening, everybody. Can I get a couple of hello? I'm just going to check that. We should be live. Right. Hello. Okay, we're live. Right. So this is actually working. So just bear with us a minute while I change a couple of things around. And let me have a look. So I think everyone should have adjusted to this. Hi everyone. I'm just going to get another, I keep saying hi everyone, don't I? I'll stop saying hi everybody once I've just figured out the windows for what I need, the other little web browser. So I need to know the questions. Let's have a look. Okay. Right. So we got hi Sue, hi Mark, Sophie's on. Jason's on. Hi, we got Tash. Tash, I hope you're keeping an eye on all the questions. That's your job. I have no idea I'm going to be able to see these. Hi, Richard. So we're just going to wait for a couple of minutes, everybody, just to wait for a few other people to join. During that time, we're going to just go around the room and just everyone to introduce themselves, introduce you to who our sort of panelists are this evening. For those that don't know, my name is Shane Griffiths, so I'm going to be kind of the host this evening, and I'm the co-founder of the Digital Taunton and the Idea Bureau. So we're just going to go kind of left to right and get everyone a chance to introduce themselves and say hello while we wait for other people to join. So Natalie, do you want to go first?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Nathalie Ingles. I'm a senior associate with the Foot Anstey employment team. And tonight I'm going to endeavour to talk to you about the various issues that employers are facing with the COVID-19 situation, including the fabled furlough status. So I'll try and get as much as I can in a very short period.
That's awesome. Thanks, Natalie. And then Kate.
Hi everybody, my name's Kate O'Sullivan. I'm the Managing Director at ADPR. We're a communications agency based just outside of Taunton, and tonight I'm going to be talking to you about the importance of communication during a crisis.
And that's great, lovely. And James, is it James? It depends, I think, on how I organise my window. Yes, it is James.
Hi everybody, so my name's James O'Sullivan. I'm a chartered accountant and I set up on my own O'Sullivan's Chartered Accountants just outside Taunton about five years ago. I'm going to be just providing a brief recap of the support measures that the government have been announcing to help try and see us all through the current crisis.
Awesome. And Mr. Shakespeare.
Good evening, everyone. It's James Shakespeare here, founder of EvoSite, based in Taunton. I'm going to be trying to share a little bit of my experience over the last 22 years through various ups and downs across the creative and digital landscape that hopefully some of you might be able to use in your businesses moving forward through this crisis.
Awesome. Yeah, good work. And Gareth. Mr. Buckley.
Sorry, the space button didn't work.
That's going to happen a few times tonight, don't worry.
Hi everyone, I'm Gareth Buckley. I'm the director at the Insolvency company. I'm going to be focusing tonight on helping people to get an understanding of their financial position, reducing costs and how to keep trading through this situation.
Awesome stuff, really important. Thank you. And Mr. Chilcott.
Yeah, I'm Rob Chilcott. I'm the Learning and Development Manager for Claims Resourcing Group and a coach with Foundations Training. I'll be talking to you around welfare, well-being, engagement levels during what our people are going through with home working and uncertainty around the future.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. And Pete.
Good evening, everyone. Hope you're all well. Pete Andrews, I'm one of the directors at Intro Tweet. We are everything and anything social media. Tonight, I'm going to be talking to you and trying to discuss how you can replace some of the things that you may have currently lost, the ability to do certain types of marketing that you're used to and try and replace them, and how social media can help you do that.
Excellent. And last but not least, Mr. Hyams.
Hi, Jeremy Hyams, if you don't know me, founder, CEO, Claims Consulting Group, and also founder of, or co-founder, sorry, Shane, of Digital Taunton. Tonight, I'm going to be sharing with you my experience operating our business continuity plan, and also talking to you about strategy and how important that really is in this sort of given time that we all find ourselves in.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Wow. What a 10 days, hey, it's been. Yeah, the world's a different place at the moment. So thanks ever so much. It looks like we've got a good few people on now. My stats saying there's about nearly 100 concurrent users on. So they can't all be my family, surely. I think there's only about 10 in my family. So
Shane, they do know that there's no pizza tonight, don't they?
yeah, unfortunately, everyone, yeah, the pizza isn't coming. Yeah, you want to stay away from those cardboard boxes, I've been told. So not good at all. So thank you for everyone that's currently watching us. This is the first time we've ever done this. We know that a lot of people are offering webinars and online training and services now, which is great, because I think we're all looking at technology now to how, to understand how we navigate through all this. And we wanted to do something a little bit different with Digital Taunton this evening. And what we wanted to do is kind of really promote the importance of bringing sort of people from different backgrounds, different skill sets, and different parts of business functions together in one place, where hopefully we can answer all kinds of different questions. So, it could be related to finance or legal or well-being or social media. So, and I felt that there weren't that many of these kinds of things going on right now, where it was a mixed bag of different people and different skill sets. So hopefully there'll be something this evening for everyone, whether you're self-employed, which Mr. O'Sullivan, I'm not sure if you saw the latest developments as of like 2 hours ago. So there might be a couple of questions around that. I know I might have a few questions, as well as all kinds of other things. So the format for this evening, we're going to keep it really informal. Actually, I think we're all a little bit nervous, and considering how we do this on, well, Jeremy and I do this on stage fairly regularly. Something about just not being able to see your audience is quite unnerving, but we're all here for a good time, and yeah, it should be all good fun. So the format of this evening is that essentially each one of our panelists are going to talk for 10 minutes around a few key takeaways from their particular experiences, from their part of the businesses that they're a part of. What we really want to encourage, though, is just lots of questions. So this will be a very much a question-led evening. So it could be that the questions take precedent over some of the things that we may have wanted to talk about. So this is going to be very much directed by the audience. So we've got a few people that will be keeping an eye on the chat for questions, and feel free to just throw it out there, and hopefully we'll be able to answer them either individually or as a group, perhaps. So we're going to kick things off straight away. We're already 1 minute behind schedule, which is just my style. So we're going to start with Nathalie this evening. Nathalie's from Foot Anstey, and I think she's going to talk a few things around the legal aspects of what's going on right now. So over to Nathalie, and any questions, I'll be listening along, following along.
Great, thanks, Shane. So yeah, as we are all aware, the current situation is having a huge impact on all businesses, whether they are global, national or regional, whether large or small. And one of the key issues for those businesses is what on earth do you do with staff when you just have a significant downturn in business and potentially no business for the foreseeable. So the government has been proposing a number of measures to support businesses, and one of the key of those being the furloughed status. So I'll be briefly touching on that tonight, as well as some other options that may be available to employers in those circumstances. So Turning first to the furlough status, now I have to have a huge caveat here because we are still waiting for the government guidance. So a lot of what I'm saying we're assuming is what's going to happen based on our experience and sort of similar provisions. It's not absolutely guaranteed. We had hoped the guidance would be out today or tomorrow, but we've now been led to believe it's not going to be published until early next week, so we can part wait. But so firstly, what exactly is furlough leave? So essentially it's where you put an employee, you stand your employees down. Essentially, they are not doing any work for you and they are specifically not entitled to do any work for you to qualify from furlough leave. During that period, they will receive 80% of their pay, subject to a monthly cap of £2,500. Once they're furloughed, the employer will have to submit relevant information about those furloughed workers through an HMRC portal, which is yet to be set up, obviously, and will be reimbursed the 80% costs by HMRC. Now, we understand that the scheme is going to be backdated to the 1st of March. So for those sort of proactive employers that have already shaved employees from their workforce and already made redundancies, you can retrospectively go back and put those employees on furlough leave and be reimbursed those costs. But conversely, if you've taken on staff since the 1st of March, we understand that those employees will not be entitled to benefit from furlough leave. So it'll be a matter of potentially laying those individuals off or simply dismissing them in those circumstances. So in terms of how the 80% will be calculated, again, we're not entirely sure, but we believe it's going to involve, at least in some degree, a 12-month average for that individual worker. And if the employee has been employed for less than 12 months, then the period of employment they have had with you and their average earnings over that period. It's also not currently clear what the tax position will be, but we understand that the reimbursement is intended to cover all the employer's costs associated with that worker. So employers' NICs, pension contributions and benefits. That is just an assumption, and I wouldn't want any of you to be making, rash decisions on furloughed status on that statement, because that's very much subject to government confirmation. What we do know, though, is that the 2,500, the payment to the worker will be subject to tax and NICs in the normal way. So it's going to be a standard salary payment. We believe there are going to be certain eligibility requirements. So it's not going to be a simple like carte blanche, let's put all of our employees on furlough leave. The purpose behind the scheme is to avoid redundancies and job losses where possible. So it's unlikely, for example, if you've had an employee on long-term sick leave and they were to approach you and say, oh, can I now be put on furlough leave? We're not sure that they would actually be eligible, particularly because they're not ready, able and willing to work. So in those circumstances, I think there may be a bit of an issue as to whether they could actually be placed on furlough leave. Those you do put on furlough leave will remain your employees. So during the period of furlough leave, they will maintain their continuity of employment, and we understand they will also continue to accrue holiday. Whether they can take periods of holiday during the period of furlough leave and therefore receive 100% of pay for those days is not yet clear, and we're hoping that will be something that the government specifically deal with in their guidance. So the first step is to designate those employees you are going to place on furlough leave, and that's obviously going to involve an element of selection. And obviously the potential for discrimination allegations. So it's got to be a bit careful as to how you do it. We're seeing a lot of employers who are already looking at this, offering it as a voluntary basis, almost like when you're offering voluntary redundancy. So essentially saying, we consider we need X number of employees to be placed on furlough status. Is anybody willing? If you don't then get enough volunteers, or if people volunteer that you don't want to put on, you should always retain discretion on that. Then you go through almost a redundancy selection exercise, so applying objective selection criteria to select those you want to place on furlough leave. There is also the possibility of rotational teams, so i.e. you put one team on furlough leave for a period, they then come back and you put the other team on furlough leave. It's not entirely clear whether that's going to be permissible, and what we understand is that a minimum period of furlough leave has to be 3 weeks. So as an absolute minimum furlough, any rotation should be at least for 3 weeks, but obviously that will be subject to government guidance as of next week. Once it has been decided who you're going to place on furlough leave, it'll be a matter of confirming that to those employees. Now, if you have a contractual right to lay off staff, you don't have to obtain consent from those employees for the furlough leave, because it's essentially the same thing. If, however, you don't have that contractual right, furlough leave is a fundamental change to their terms and conditions of employment, so you will need to obtain their consent. In practical circumstances, I don't think consent is going to be that difficult to obtain, given the alternative option available, but it's just something to be aware of. So when you confirm it to them, make sure it's in writing, make sure it's subject to the terms of the scheme in case the terms of the scheme change and you're no longer able to sustain it, and make sure that they are being required to return and confirm that they understand and accept that position. The final point on this is that we understand grants should be available in the next few weeks, but ultimately we don't think the scheme is actually going to be fully up in place and operation until sort of the end of April. So if you are thinking about it and you're going to be having short-term cash flow options, then potentially consider the other business interruption loans available, and I think James is going to be covering that later on. But so in those circumstances where furlough is not going to work for you, what are the alternative options? So there is short-time working. This is where employees reduce their hours and have a corresponding reduction in pay. Again, if you have a contractual right to do this, then there's no obligation to obtain consent, and you can impose those short-term working provisions on your employees. If you don't have a contractual right to do so, again, it's a matter of obtaining consent. However, we are seeing, huge amounts of employees really, doing what they can to support their employees in the current circumstances. Everybody knows it's an unprecedented situation, and everybody's doing what they can to support the business and support themselves and ensure that there's viable business operation. So that is something to consider, just, talking to your employees, explaining the situation and asking for their help in reducing hours and reducing pay. There's obviously the contractual right of layoff, but given the furlough status, this has essentially been eclipsed. And I think if you were to try and lay off staff now with no pay in circumstances when they might be entitled to furlough leave, you could potentially be acting in breach of contract, and also potentially leading to a constructive dismissal claim if the employee were feeling particularly brave. So I would hold fire on any layoffs for the time being. If the furlough leave is to come to an end, then at that point you may consider layoff if there's still a significant reduction in work, but for the time being I would hold off on that one. Similarly, where you are proposing to make redundancies, you should at least consider furlough leave as an alternative. And if you don't consider a viable option, you should document the fact that you have considered it and why you do not consider it to be a viable alternative, just to make sure you've got that position on paper should any employee try and make a claim of unfair dismissal. In the circumstances with furlough leave available, redundancies are probably most likely to be applicable where you already had that sort of restructuring plan in place prior to the current situation, or there's some other external factor which is meaning those redundancies are necessary notwithstanding the COVID situation, or where even at the other side, when we come out of this very bizarre period, you still think the nature of your business is going to be significantly different, such that the structure of those roles, the structure of your teams is going to be different. In those circumstances, I think it's still okay to make redundancies, but do just make sure that you've demonstrated that you've considered furlough as an alternative. Other possible options are, of course, agreeing unpaid leave and career breaks with your employees. We've had a couple of those where people have agreed to go on a career break and essentially have gone off to work, do some paid work for the NHS. That's a possibility. And also where you've got outstanding job offers, to be particularly brutal, you can withdraw those. If an employee has not accepted, then it's a simple matter of just withdrawing the offer. Where they have accepted, there is a contract of employment in place, and so it will be necessary to give contractual notice. Normally in these circumstances, it's a notice of probationary period, so about 1 week, and the employee won't start to actually suffer loss until their start date. So there shouldn't actually have to be any payment provided you give that sufficient period of notice. So turning away from the sort of less critical options, for those businesses that are able to sustain their employees in their current employment, it's not to say there aren't sadly issues with it. And obviously the first one being working from home. And now the ACAS has actually published some good guidance on this. It's common sense. I'm sure that you're all doing the things it recommends, but essentially it's making sure you are in regular contact with your employee, making sure they have the right equipment to carry out their role, that the systems are stable, and essentially just setting clear expectations for both you and them to ensure that the working from home relationship works well for both of you. But perhaps the biggest issue with home working, and one which I am feeling acutely at the moment, having a 2-year-old desperately trying to help me with my work every day, is the issue of childcare. Now, normally, obviously, we wouldn't ordinarily allow employees to be doing childcare at the same time as carrying out their work responsibilities. But this is an unprecedented situation, and it's just taking a pragmatic response. So I think anything you can be doing to ensure employees are able to sustain both the childcare and the work responsibilities is crucial. So for example, me and my husband, who's also a lawyer, one of those terribly sad couples, have agreed a rota system. So one of us will work in the morning, one of us will work in the afternoon, and we'll top up our hours in the evening. So it's considering those alternative working arrangements, perhaps relaxing deadlines, perhaps considering part-time workers' hours and whether you can tail those together, so it's almost like a job share. Any sort of situation you can agree with your employees is beneficial for both you and them, and hopefully will reap rewards in the end. One other issue, and I know I'm running out of time, so I'm trying to be quick here, is just the issue of sick pay. Obviously, those who are self-isolating in line with the Public Health England guidelines, that is those who are either displaying symptoms or live in a household with people who are displaying symptoms, are entitled to SSP, and they're entitled to SSP from day one, and the employer is entitled to reimbursement of SSP for the first 14 days. Now, there is a bit of ambiguity at the moment as to whether those who are self-isolating because they're in a vulnerable group would actually qualify. On the actual face of the regulations, they are not, because it's not public health guidelines yet, it's NHS guidance yet. But we think that's an error. We think that is going to be rectified, and therefore they will also be entitled to SSP for those benefits. And last but not least, to try and keep within my time, is the self-employed. I'm sure those of you who are self-employed gave a little hurrah as well at IR35 being postponed. But obviously that's not been quite enough, and the government today has obviously confirmed a support package. I haven't had an awful lot of time to look at the absolute detail of this, but what I understand is it's essentially mirroring the job retention scheme for employees. So it'll be a taxable grant of 80% of average monthly income, subject to the £2,500 cap. And the income will be calculated by taking the average of income over the last 3 years. You have to be genuinely self-employed to benefit, and you must have had a tax return for 2019 to establish that. And it's only open to those who have trading profits of up to £50,000. If you have trading profits in excess of £50,000, sadly, you're not able to benefit from this, and may have to think about alternative financing options. If you haven't already done your tax return, you are being given a grace period of an extra 4 weeks, so that's something. And the other definitive benefit of this over the employee scheme is that you are actually able to continue working and get the grant. So it's not like you are able to undertake no work and benefit. So that is an actual benefit for the self-employed. I'm going to do a shameless plug. If you are thinking about furlough status, then we have a package that we can help you with that. So please do feel free to let me know, and if there's anything particular that I haven't covered or we won't cover in the questions, obviously do feel free to get in touch. I'm more than happy to have a quick chat. So please do let me know.
Wow, that was fantastic. Very clear, very professional. Thank you so much.
You're
There's been
welcome.
lots of, I know you can't stay around for too long, but there's lots of questions. And one of the things I was just going to say, everybody, that we, in respect and huge amounts of gratitude to the staff at the NHS and all the volunteers that are going to be taking part shortly. There's this thing on Facebook, if no one knows already, or across social media, in fact, about everybody stopping at 8 o'clock to give their appreciation and just kind of give a clap and a salute or a chin chin to the NHS workers. So we'll be doing that in just a couple of minutes. So I'm keeping my eye on the clock.
And Shane, I was going to say, can I just butt in there? Just to put a bit of context in this, it's actually a global thing that's been, you know, there's hundreds of thousands of people across the world that have done this at 8 o'clock. So it's yeah, it's gathering a bit of pace.
Fantastic. What a great little thing to do, right? So I reckon we can get one cheeky question in, because there's loads, so we might not be get through all of them. So first of all, from Jason Hockey. Hi, Jason. Oh, I sound like a radio host. Jason asks, what rate of tax and national insurance will be applied to the furlough?
That's sadly one of the things we just do not know yet. And I really apologise for this. It's incredibly frustrating for us, and I'm sure it's incredibly frustrating for all of you, that we just don't know. The tax position is one of those big unknowns that we're really hoping for confirmation on the government as soon as possible. So apologies on that one.
Okay. And another quick one from Chris Paul. Holiday is another concern.
Mm-hmm.
They come back, then they want time off.
Yeah.
Any questions or thoughts around that? Well,
again, we're still waiting on confirmation as to whether they can take holiday during furlough leave. If they can, there's obviously an ability for employers to specify periods of leave when the employees must take holiday. So if, for example, you want an employee to take a period of 1 week's holiday, you just have to give them 2 weeks notice. You have to give double the period of holiday in notice to ensure they take it. So if they can take holiday during furlough leave, I suggest you bear that in mind, and you can try and stagger the holiday throughout the furlough period, so you don't have that situation where they all go off on return.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. Hopefully that was clear for you, Chris. 2 more minutes until 8 o'clock. So from Something Different EU, I'm not sure who that is, but hello. This person says, will a 0-hour contract worker be eligible to be put on furlough? And how do we then calculate their entitlement?
So as far as we understand at the moment, all those workers who are paid through PAYE will be entitled to furlough status, which should include 0 hours workers. It will be, again, on the basis of their last 12 months earnings. So if they've worked, a considerable amount during that 12 months, then obviously they'll be based on that. If they haven't worked so much, then, that's what it is. But there might be an alternative clarification to the earnings requirement. But a lot of employers, obviously, some employers do want to do the right thing and furlough casual workers or 0 hours workers. Others are just sort of simply not offering work, which I know is quite brutal in circumstances, but that is an option.
Excellent. And literally about 40 seconds until it says 8 o'clock on my clock. What else have we got? Can you, from Stu Long, can you advise, actually no, sod it, let's just have a little break, a little breather. And why rush it? We're not here to rush anything. Let's just take our time, right?
If there's any other questions, then, feel free to let me know.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are a whole bunch of questions, but we're going to follow that up in a blog post, and we'll be able to link people to the blog post where perhaps before that blog post goes live, you can perhaps answer some more of those questions.
Sure.
That would be great. My wife's clapping. It's not 8 by my watch, but it is 8 right this minute. So why don't we just give everyone a clap? And I hope everyone's given a big cheer on the live stream, and in the comments, give us a wavy emoji, and everyone's clapping on mute. I'm clapping loud, so everyone can just hear me and surround sound in the living room. But well, whatever. I'll mute clap. No, I mean, what people are doing right now is just, yeah, it's nice to have a bit of positivity, right? My wife's actually going all in. She's hanging out the window, apparently. I think I can hear. Yeah. Did anyone, not sure how long this is. Patrick, you're good at this. How long is this meant to go on for? Oh, that's amazing. I can hear people outside my street, actually. Oh, I'm on a live stream. Wow. That is fantastic. Oh, what a lovely, if I know Jeremy lives out in the middle of nowhere, so he can't, sorry, Jeremy, you're just, one of those things where you've got all those acres. I live in a nice built up area, so I can hear loads of people. Yeah, well, joke's on you now, isn't it? Right. So I think that's, I think we could stop now. Yes, brilliant. So no, what an awesome thing, hey? I love that. Absolutely love that. It's one of the actually best things that's happened in a few days. So let's carry on with the event this evening. Thank you to Nathalie ever so much for that. If you have to dip out in the next few minutes, feel free to, and once again, thank you.
No problem. My pleasure.
So we're actually, I think, keeping to schedule. If anyone comes to any of our physical in-person events, then that's a bit of a running joke with our little digital Taunton community. But we're going to jump right over now to Jeremy. Jeremy, he's the founder of Claims Consortium Group and the director of Digital Taunton, and he's going to be discussing about strategy and all kinds of good stuff. Go for it.
Good evening, guys. It's nice to be here. Thanks for joining. So, yeah, I just want to talk to you a bit about the experience that we've had in our business continuity planning and part of our strategy, and also hopefully to paint a picture to give some ideas that it's, you know, whilst we're all in uncharted territory and it's really scary times, it doesn't matter what sort of business you are, whether you're a sole trader, you know, we're in a really financially good position. We have 300 people. We're a business that's always on the up, but I'm nervous, you're right. You know, everyone's nervous. We don't know what's going to happen. We're faced with sort of business worries. Things today are just not the same as what they were yesterday, and we're faced with personal worries. There's probably not anyone around here that doesn't have their own personal worry about a family member or a close friend that may be affected in this. So, you know, it is uncharted territory, and it is a bit kind of making up as we go along, so, to a degree. So take what I say with a pinch of salt. But my challenge, first of all, having 300 staff and 200 of which of the calls are in a call center, was ensuring that we could migrate those staff into home workers. And I've got to say, we were very fortunate to be led. We have a business continuity plan, and that was led by our director of technology, Tom, who's not on the call today, but he was a very calm influence in amongst a kind of panicky atmosphere. And we strategized, as soon as this happened, a 2-week exit strategy. And the first week I was saying, come on, Tom, right, we need to do this. We need to get people out today. And he's going, no, Jeremy, just calm down. Hold on a second. We are going to spend the whole week preparing what we're going to do. And I'm like, no, we need to get people out now. And he's like, no, we're going to get the software sorted out. We're going to do a detailed analysis of who's got what equipment, who hasn't got equipment, who hasn't got broadband, and a whole survey, an analysis. And you know what? He knew what he was talking about. So we spent literally the first 4 days of preparing, and then sent 10 people home on the Friday. Tom and I spoke Friday night, and we both agreed that we needed to fast forward the plan because we felt by middle of the week we could be in a lockdown. So the guys worked over the weekend. On the Monday, we sent home half the call centre, and by Tuesday night, we'd sent home the entire staff. So, you know, feeling really good about that. But there was a lesson to be learned looking at the guy leading that, was to keep calm and, you know, execute the plan that we'd written in the first place. So for me, we've been in daily meetings. The leadership team have been in daily meetings, and the exec board have been in meetings every other day. I've got to say, and Shane will know this, I've never been a fan of things like Microsoft Teams or Slack or anything else like that. But I am the biggest fan of Microsoft Teams now. I'm like an expert on it. I can upload files, I can share documents. You know, so, you know, there's a lot of bad things going on. But like, so the one thing that I can assure every single business out here in every single market is this, okay? The one certain thing is, when we get out of this, no marketplace is going to look the same, and no business is going to look the same, right? And, you know, if we take the very small example, I did a webinar with 300 people the other day. It took me 15 minutes with 10-minute talk, and then it took me 15 minutes to set up a 10-minute talk and a 20-minute Q&A session. And I was thinking, oh my God, when we get out of this, I'm going to do this every single week, because it was really easy. Everyone really loved it. They felt really good about it. So even if I take that small nugget and nothing else changes, I've changed my business for a positive thing. But the things I just wanted to touch on was a couple of things I'd like to give out as I think you should watch this at the moment, and a couple of hopefully pointers to point in the right direction. So I'm not going to talk too much about comms because I know Kate's going to do that, but certainly we have had a comm strategy with our people, updating them daily, as I said, through a webinar, updating them on daily bulletins, updating our clients, updating our customers. There's subtle difference between the two, and our supply chain. Like I said, I won't talk too much about that. I'll let Kate do that, because she'll do that in better detail than I will. The thing that we're in now, we're out of the business continuity planning, and we're now in critical planning. And what I mean for that is we're looking at a couple of really important things that could break our company or make our company. And that is, and it's very much what Nathalie was talking about before. It's about our people and about working in a new environment. So here's the thing. What a working day was yesterday is not the same thing today, right? We have no idea what a good working day is today. So what we're trying to do at the moment is collect from people their home situation. How many kids have they got? How old are they? At what time are they using the internet in order to do some schooling? How can we assist them doing that schooling? And once we've got all of that and we know everyone's circumstances, we're going to work out a schedule so we can best work out how to make time for people to have their family time and their schooling time. And we haven't got the answers. We're just looking at it and playing with it. And the other thing that I'm not going to touch on, because I've got Rob here, who is leading the project for me in my business, and he's going to talk about the wonderful stuff that he's doing. But there is a really serious point about the well-being of people. We're all stressed. We're all under pressure. We're all worried about our loved ones or certain loved ones. And this is only going to intensify. So it's really important we care for our people in a big way, right? And we need to get well-being programs out there. And that's something we're focusing on a lot. A couple of warning points, and I'm sure James will touch on this, but I would have to say, no matter how robust you are as a business, cash at the moment is king. Okay, if you're not doing cash forecasts, tomorrow morning, do a cash forecast. And I would say, it doesn't matter how much money you have in the bank, every week, do a cash forecast. Doesn't matter if you just do it monthly, usually do it every week. You need to understand what is going at your business. So we have certain trigger points. We've created certain trigger points, not saying that we'll do things on certain trigger points, but we'll enter into discussions. So we're very clear about what may have to happen, because being not profitable won't put you to the wall, okay? The thing that will send you to the wall is running out of cash. It's as simple as that. There is no other thing that is more important. And I can't stress that enough. So for example, you can do things now. Cash right now, what I'd call a really easy thing to do is speak to your customers, okay? And either try and get your payments made on time, or even better than that, what a lot of our clients have done, we've said, hey guys, cash is king. What can you do to support us? And a lot of our clients have sped up our payments. So go and have that word with your clients. They're not going to think anything the worse of you in this circumstance if you do that. In fact, they'll probably look at you and think that's a pretty cool thing to do. And then just have certain trigger points. So the next trigger point may be, well, actually something a bit more serious. Maybe I'll have to start furloughing our people. Or you may go to, if you start running out of cash to a point where you're really worried about your business, you may have to look at redundancies, but certainly have that conversation and that thought process. The other thing to watch out, I've been told, and there's certainly better people, and maybe Durgan's on this call from SETSA, I don't know, but as of February the 23rd, there was a definite rise in cybercrime, and more sophisticated and very much aimed at the coronavirus. At a time where people's security is at the lowest because everyone's working at home, the IT departments are really stretched, everyone's really panicked, the fraudsters are having a field day, right? And it isn't just the normal phishing email, there's counterfeit websites coming up, there's hoax phone calls and hoax texts, people phoning up to say, hey, we know you're working at home, your broadband's not really very fast, with your broadband provider, give us your credit card details and we'll expand, we'll give you free expansion at this moment. There's loads of scams. You've just got to be really, really, really careful. But look, on the positive side, there are loads of things to come out of this. Okay, and forgive me if I'm running out of time. Shane, just tell me how long I've got.
I hit you with a big virtual stick. Don't worry.
All right. Okay. So look, a couple of things here. Every business has admin. Every business is behind on admin. There's no business that is on top of their admin. If your business comes out of this and you're not 100% up to date on your admin tasks, every single little detail, then you have failed in this. Okay. Spend this time going through every single piece of admin. So when you get out of this post coronavirus, you are in a strong, lean position to go out and start selling again. So that's one thing. Second thing I would say, look for the gaps in the market now. Okay, there is plenty of, start thinking laterally. Start thinking about what you can sell, even if it's outside your core products. Okay, is there? So we've started selling software as a service products where people can just log on and use our systems without utilizing us. That's something our IT guys brought together really quickly, and it's actually working really well. Whether it's going to generate much income, who knows at the moment. But think out, you don't have to sell the same product as you were selling yesterday. Look at it laterally. Furloughing, right? There is a great opportunity. So, right, furloughing. If you furlough someone, there is a great chance that someone's going to think, oh, they furloughed me. They obviously don't think much of me. But hey, there is an opportunity here. If as a business you can connect with local charities, if you can be the facilitator to say, connect with the NHS, connect with supermarkets, connect with the homeless people and all the other people, and act as a facilitator, you can say to your guys, I've got great news. We're going to pay you, you're going to be furloughed. We're going to pay you the 20%. We'll deal with that. But what we're going to do, where do you want to work now as a charity? What do you want to give back to your community? Because trust me, most people do. And then you facilitate that and help them into that area. So they're off doing wonderful stuff for the community, feeling really great about themselves, not like they're being victimized because they're being furloughed. And then when you come back, because you will need them, okay, then they're going to come back positive, feeling really great, feeling really great about you for giving that opportunity. So turn that negative into a positive. And, finally, my final word is, when this is over, there is going to be a surge of work for everything. It's going to suddenly go back, and it's going to be backlogs of stuff. So you're going to need people. But let me tell you this, right? I'll finish with what I started. The marketplace that you are in will not look the same. There will be losers. There will be people that would have gone to the wall. Your competitors would have gone to the wall. Your competitors would have let your clients down. Okay. So what I would say is, you want to make sure you use this period to get lean, to get fit, and to stay visualized on the outcome of this, because there is going to be massive opportunity to expand your business when this is all over. Okay. And you want to make sure you are best fit to do that. And that's it for me.
Wow. I'm pumped, Jeremy. I'm absolutely pumped. I want to go and just do some cash flow forecast now. No, amazing. Thank you so much. That is, to hear something that's just about moving things forward, right? And progress and innovating and, picking yourself up and just cracking on, I think is what we all need to be hearing right now. No, thank you so much. Yeah, no, the thing about the cash flow forecast is, so important. In our business, we have this fancy spreadsheet where it basically tells us what we define as months to die. So we just have a big number that tells us how many months we have left before we're gone. And that number kind of scares us enough to make sure that we keep on top of it. So it's like, it's a definition. It's a descriptive way of us going, okay, yeah, that's really serious. And that's kind of worked for us. No, good stuff. There's a couple of questions actually, and they're very similar to what I was going to ask myself. Was that Jason and Paul pretty much have the same kind of question. You have had to force your business to react completely differently. Essentially, most of your workforce now are working from home. Do you see this as just a a bit of a beta test, or do you think that this could be the future direction to your business or similar large businesses in your sector or other sectors?
Do you know what? It's such a great question, because I've always liked the idea of the home working for our call centre, but I've always dismissed it, and everyone on our exec team has always dismissed it, because how on earth can that possibly happen? And now we're talking, that very same question's come up and going, oh my gosh, this could work. Hold on a second. Why have we got so many buildings? Why are they so big? Hold on a second. If we had people working from home, we could attract a wider range of people. We could be more flexible. And it's completely changed our outlook about what is going to happen going forward. And that's exactly one of the things that I was saying. Our business will not look the same for many different reasons. One, I'll be doing webinars. Two, I'll be using Microsoft Teams. Three, we will be absolutely utilising and exploring how to get the most out of home working. So it's a great question. And it was a sudden wake up call. And I don't think I'm any different to any other business. I bet there's loads of businesses that have experienced that. So really, there's nothing like a bit of a sort of a drama to create innovation and change. And that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, I'm a massive fan of remote working, and I've been interested in that kind of culture for a while. My business, I mean, I only run a small business, but I transitioned from having an office and a studio to now being a fully remote business. And I've been a remote business for 3 years now. We're a small team of 3, but and I always question, medium-sized businesses or larger businesses, they spend so much money on these fixed assets.
I know, right?
And it's like, imagine what you could give back in learning and development or wages or perks in other ways without having these fixed assets. And I'm hoping that the future of remote working is now going to come forward by 5 years when we're beyond all this plague. And because, I mean, there's so many benefits to remote working. It's a bit of a challenge to, for those that aren't particularly comfortable, but it can be a great thing. The other question was from old Mr. Patrick. He just said, are your staff working from home? All of them. But I think the answer is yes, right? Everyone's
absolutely. I suppose with the exception of we've got a couple of facility guys, and their job is to make sure that the buildings are safe and secure, and they do the maintenance. So that's what they'll continue to do. So apart from that, yeah, absolutely.
And there's also an awful lot of love for Microsoft Teams tonight. I think there's a couple of sales reps in the chat. They're like stirring it all up for competition going or something. But yeah, a lot of love for Teams. Personally, I don't use Teams, and most of our clients aren't Microsoft people as such, although some of them are.
I'm converting you though slowly.
Yeah, no, I'm happy.
I've got you onto LinkedIn.
Let's run digital Taunton on Teams. I mean, if it's better than Morse code and pigeons that I keep having to throw your way, then I'll take anything. I'll take anything. My Morse code is getting rustier by the day. So excellent, good man. I love it. Real positive. That's leadership right there, in my opinion. Okay. Next up, we have Kate from ADPR. Hi, Kate.
Hello.
A little bit behind schedule, but who cares?
I wouldn't expect anything else, Shane.
I know. Well, the floor is yours. Take it away.
Lovely, thank you very much, and hi everybody. So I'm going to be speaking to you just for the next few minutes about the importance of good communication during a crisis. Now you will have to bear with me because we would normally spend a whole day talking to our clients about this. So I'm going to give you a real whistle-stop tour over the next 10 minutes. Shane, you might have to cut me off as well if I start rabbiting on. Now, obviously, in an ideal world, our advice to clients would always be to have a crisis plan prepared before the crisis happens. That's the general rule of thumb. But the reality is that very, very few of us would have been able to prepare for something on this scale. It happened so quickly, and all of our stable businesses, all of our employees, freelancers, everybody was suddenly faced with their businesses potentially doing this overnight. And I completely understand as a business owner myself how scary that is. So what I would say is that we can't at the moment control what's happening in the world around us. But what we can do is we can control how we choose to respond to it. And that's where good communication and clear communication is really vital during times like this. So what I would say is that the good news is that if you haven't got anything prepared, and if you're sitting there thinking, I haven't communicated anything, I don't know what to do, there are some really simple things that you can be doing today, tomorrow, start straight away. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about. So I'm going to cover off internal cons, external cons, and also some things that you can be doing if actually you're one of those people who found that your business has just had to close temporarily overnight and you've got no income coming in. Before I do that, there is one point that I really want to get across that's going to go across everything I say, and that is that speed and efficiency here is absolutely vital. The situation is moving at a really fast pace, and as Jeremy said, we don't know what one day is going to look like from the next. So you need to ensure that any communications that you're putting out there are both timely and relevant. So if you're sitting there and you think, I haven't got time to keep updating it, do what you can, but just make sure that at the very, very least, you're putting a date on all of the content so that if anybody's looking at it, they'll be able to make their own judgment as to whether or not it's relevant. Now, if you take anything away from what I'm going to say to you tonight, it is this: put your people first, always. It is so, so important. Your people are at the front line of your business. You know, your people are your business. So it's really, really important that they know what's going on, and make no mistake, they will be looking to you if you're a business owner for the answers and to lead and inform them, not just about what's happening at work, but also about what's happening in the bigger picture and around the world. I think it's fair to say that customer service and teamwork are more important than ever before at the moment. So if you communicate well with your team, they're going to have all of the information they need, and you can leave them alone to get on with their job, and you'll know that they're doing absolutely the right things and that they're going to deliver that service to your customers and clients. Now, one of my top tips here, the first step is to work out exactly who you need to speak to. So internally, think about all of the people who are associated with your business. So it's your employees, absolutely, but it could also be shareholders, suppliers, your customers, or even other companies that you collaborate with on a regular basis. Make a list of who you want to speak to and think about the best way to communicate with them, the communication channels that you should be using, and also how often you should be updating those people. I would also say it's really, really important to review your kind of current purpose, your objectives, and your goals. Don't ignore your long-term plan and your long-term strategy. That's there for a reason. But I think we all need to accept that at the moment we may need to pause on those, and they're not going to be our main priority. So you may need to come up with a temporary purpose. And we normally spend weeks trying to come up with this stuff. You'll be amazed how quickly you can do it when you're in a situation like this. So at ADPR at the moment, you know, our sole purpose is that we need to look after one another. We need to support and protect our clients. We need to safeguard our own business. And we also want to be able to provide help and support to the wider business community. You need to be really transparent, and that doesn't mean scaring your employees, you know, but as we've already alluded to tonight, your team, they're probably going to be worried about their own health or that of family members. They might be trying to juggle full-time job whilst looking after toddlers and children. And on top of all of that, they're going to be concerned about losing their jobs. You know, they're not stupid. They can see what's happening. I certainly, on the first day of all of this happening, made a commitment to my team that I would be honest with them about what was happening, and that includes the financial picture of the business. I would much rather be able to reassure them where I can, but also to be honest with them about the situation. Even bad news is better if you can be as prepared for it as possible. So don't pretend it's business as usual if it isn't, and the chances are right now for all of us it's not business as usual. But equally, don't catastrophize the situation either. I'm not going to go on about this because Jeremy's kind of already touched on it, but do talk to your team every single day. And I'm just going to put in another plug for Microsoft Teams because it's blooming brilliant. And I never wanted to use it, didn't want to be on video. Our team are over that now. And Yeah, it is really good, but do make sure that you're speaking to them on a daily basis, giving them the updates they need. And also, it's really good having video because you can look for visual signs as well. You know each other really well, so if something isn't quite right, you're much more likely to pick up on it over video. Have an open door policy as well. Make sure that people can talk to you. Make sure that you let them know that you're there for them. And also, really importantly, it is not all doom and gloom. Good things are still happening within the business. We're still getting some good results. People are working really hard, and it's really important, really important actually, to try and find something to celebrate every day. And that's certainly what we're trying to do, and it really helps to keep morale up. And also have some fun if you can. So we're social creatures. We like to communicate with one another. And at ADPR, we've actually set up the ADPR virtual pub again on Microsoft Teams. And next week we're going to get together and we're going to have a pub and a pub quiz and a gin night. And ADPR is going to be taking on Shane and the Idea Bureau. Yeah, we're going to win, Shane. So we're going to have a little bit of fun with that as well, because we've got to. It's depressing out there. We've got to create our own fun. Moving on to external comms as well, which is also really important. And I think the most important thing to say is now probably isn't the time to be going quiet, but you do need to review your strategy. You need to be looking at your marketing plans for the coming months and considering whether the things that you had in the plan and in the pipeline are still relevant. What I would say to you is that at the moment, if you're thinking of launching any new products or services, think really carefully about whether those things are vital right now to people. And if they're not, then actually it's probably not the best time to launch them. I think as well, it's really important to be thinking about who your customers are and how they like to receive their information. Once you know that, you can start working out a plan and the different channels that you're going to use. Utilize your customer database as well. Start thinking about communicating with the people that are already engaging with your business. Your website, it's your shop window, really important right now. At the very least, make sure you have some sort of statement on your website that talks about your response to COVID-19, how you're dealing with it, and try and provide some reassurance to your customers. Again, really important to be open, honest, and transparent. The good thing about this situation is that we're all in the same boat. So there is a level of understanding there that maybe there wouldn't normally be. People aren't expecting businesses to be running at the same capacity that they normally would be, and people are understanding of that. But they do expect to know what's going on. So tell them if there's going to be delays, tell them. And where possible, explain to them what you might be doing to try and overcome it, or when they can expect normal service to resume, if you're able to. And keep that information fresh, keep people updated. Like I say, it's changing all the time. Content's really important. The best thing that you can be doing is creating a series of informative content for people. Don't just be plugging your business. It's really not about that right now. It's about giving the people who are engaged with your brand what they want to hear about. So it might be stuff about health and well-being. It might be tips for things to do with the kids. It could be, you could move some of your business online and be doing webinars and things like this. Again, you've got the toolkit, so you kind of need to look at your toolkit and think about how you're going to utilize it in the best way possible. Social media is your best friend right now, and I'm not going to dwell on that because I know that Pete's going to talk to you about it. But again, make sure that the content that you're putting on social media is really relevant, really informative, and stuff that's actually got an authentic voice. It's coming from you, so your customers know who's talking to them, and they're going to trust that, and they're going to be really grateful for you communicating with them. Media relations as well, that is a tricky one at the moment, and normally we're really easily able to inform our clients about who they should be talking to at the media and what sort of results you're likely to get. And we just can't do that at the moment. The news agenda is changing all the time. There's really only one thing being spoken about in the news. Having said that, publications are still crying out for content. So if you have got news to issue, think about what that news is. maybe put some calls into some journalists, and particularly magazines where they'll be working on their July issues already. They're going to need content. Have a chat to them. Don't bombard them with information, too much information. It's just going to annoy them. They're really busy. But try and make contact with them. Find out what sort of things they want to be hearing about. You know, they probably want some positive news stories, and work it out on a one-to-one basis. But again, if you can hold back on news and launches and things, it probably is sensible to do so at the moment. The other thing that we have heard is that national newspapers, apparently the best days to be sending them news is Thursdays and Fridays. So bear that in mind as well. And keep positive. Make sure you keep sharing positive news with your clients as well. We've seen lots of really lovely newsletters being sent that are kind of like sign up for your daily dose of positivity. We all really need that now. So don't be afraid to be positive. It can't all be doom and gloom here. You know, we've got to look at the bright side. And as Jeremy said, positive things will come out of this eventually. And just really, really finally, what can you do if your business has literally had to close overnight? I'm going to use my sister as an example. She runs a forest school, so she's out in the woods all the time with children. It's had to stop. And she said to me, you know, my business is gone. What can I do? And I was like, hang on a minute. You've still got a brand. Okay, you can't trade at the moment, but you have still got a brand there, and you need to keep it alive. And we've kind of leapt into action. And again, it's all been on social media. But what she's now decided to do, and this isn't for commercial gain at all, but she's now doing live webinars. And yesterday, I think she had quite possibly the most engagement she has ever had in 7 years of running her business, just purely from doing her webinars, because what she's doing is she's keeping the people who are interested in her brand, in her business, engaged and communicating with one another. Right now, parents really need as much help as they can get. She's able to do that, and it's really focusing on nature. And, you know, the commercial side of it for her will come from at the end of this. It may well be that she'll have attracted loads of new customers as well. Who knows? You know, that's really not the priority at the moment. The priority is kind of making sure that she's covering that service. So I think, if that is you, think about what you can be doing to help your community and to talk to your community. And I think I've probably run over, so I'm going to be quiet now. Just the one thing I would say is that ADPR at the moment, we are offering free consultancy to all businesses. So I'm really, really happy for you to contact us after this, and we would be really happy to chat very specifically about any issues that you've got at the moment. So thank you.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you. There's loads and loads of really good advice, and lots of people saying hello and sending their love and sending their love to your sister as well. Yeah, possibly. Or my parents. I think they like you more than me. Yeah, no, fantastic. And actually I had a question that I wanted to ask, and I think you sort of covered it with your sister's story. It's about if you run a business and you feel that what you're offering or selling is just the thing that really no one wants to be dealing with right now. Let's say recruitment, perhaps. No one really wants to hear from recruitment companies right now. So, as you know, what would a recruitment company should be doing right now? I mean, how can they keep their brand alive, offer a service, knowing that the audience is probably not really listening?
Yeah, it's so tricky, and there are so many wide varieties of business. And I mean, all I can say, if you're in recruitment, use the time. I mean, you could just be using the time to be thinking about how you're going to come back from this. Think about how you might innovate, you know, spend time producing loads of really good content, so as that when you're back up and running, you can be putting that on your social media channels as soon as you're able to get back into it. I mean, people are going to be looking to recruit again after this. You know, it will happen. It might take a bit of time, but it will happen. But in the meantime, you know, you've probably got people, companies who use your services on a regular basis. You don't want to be ringing them up and trying to encourage them to employ people at the moment, because, you know, very few people are going to be doing that. No. But what you can be doing is you probably really understand businesses well. You probably really understand some of the problems that MDs and business owners are facing. So you can be preparing them for what they need to do for when they are looking to recruit again. So you can be sending them really informative content and information. And again, that just keeps that engagement. There's loads of recruitment agencies out there. So when we're back up and running, which one are you going to turn to? Are you going to turn to the one who's been hounding you and saying, oh, you know, don't forget, we're still supplying jobs? Or are you going to be the one who's been sensitive and giving you information and giving you a bit of support during this time? That's going to be the person you trust and come back to afterwards. So I think it's as simple as that. And unfortunately, there's no easy fix for the commercial answer right now. Yeah,
no, it's a really good answer. Really good answer. So just a quick couple of questions. Oh, this is a good question from Ben, actually. One of the things I've been seeing in my inbox is that every company I've ever bought anything from I might have bought an ice cream back in 1992, and all of a sudden I get their coronavirus response, and it's like, it's everyone. If you're selling pizza or if you're selling coloring books, this is our statement on coronavirus. And Ben actually has written, this might be putting you on the spot a little bit, but just, have you seen any really good examples of comms or marketing during this period?
Yeah, the ones that have really stood out to us and that we've been sharing amongst our team are the ones that are a bit different. And there was a really lovely one. I can't actually remember who it came from. There was a really lovely one, and it was, here's really positive things that are happening. There are some really positive stories. Sign up here to receive your free daily dose of positivity. They weren't talking at all about their services, their products, their response. It was just something that if you wanted to, it was just going to give you a couple of minutes of, oh, actually, isn't that really nice to hear amongst all of the doom and gloom? So I agree with you. And actually, it's a really important point. Firstly, if you're getting loads of those emails and you've got the time, unsubscribe from them. They won't bother you anymore.
It's a hobby of mine.
But equally, as a company, maybe it is a chance to have a little look through your database as well, and be mindful of the fact that people are being bombarded. It's really noisy out there with everybody leaping onto their communications. So it is about timing and relevance, and don't bombard people. I know James today received the same bit of communication maybe 5 or 6 times in his inbox, and he was really busy and tearing his hair out, and that has the opposite effect. So it's a fine balance between communicating well and often and annoying people.
No, I know what you mean there. So thank you, that's really good. What else have we got? So Alfred has mentioned, I think you might have already touched on this, but just an example of absolutely what not to do during this period, just like a tip that he could take away of just don't do this type stuff.
My top tip probably would be don't carry on as usual. It's insensitive. And also make sure that you are looking at anything that you've kind of scheduled to go out automatically, because you could so easily forget to do that and something really inappropriate could go out. So I think pause, take a breath, look at what you're doing, think about what you're doing. Stay calm, don't panic, because that's when you're going to make mistakes with your communications, and that can be really, really damaging.
Yeah, excellent. And was there anything else? No, I think that was it, actually. Brilliant. Thank you ever so much.
No problem. Thank you.
Really, really useful. And yeah, once again, I know that you have communicated to your networks around the free consulting you're offering right now, which is incredibly generous. Yeah, I encourage people to check that out. So moving along, up next, talking about social media and all kinds of marketing and that jazz, we've got Pete Andrews from Intro Tweet. Take it away.
Lovely, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I just want to kick off before I get going, just saying I hope you're all well, and I hope everyone is keeping safe and everything that's going on. Before I start getting a little bit technical, I just want to really echo everything that Kate was saying. And say it's a really important time to be making sure that you are visible and making sure that you are not going quiet, even if your business is going slightly quiet. And whether that's with social media or regular updates to your website or whatever it might be, It's really important to make sure that you're staying out there. But again, exactly as Kate says, your tone is really important at the moment. One of the points I've got down here that I want to talk about is the sort of content that you could be sharing at the moment. And again, basically just to echo what Kate said before I move on to a few different things. People need value at the moment. You need to be giving them something that's useful to them, not just flogging products or flogging services. And obviously that's difficult because we're all businesses. We're all trying to sell a product or a service, especially at the moment if things have gone a little bit quieter. But it simply won't get the response you want it to get, and it's likely to put people off. And people need value. Everybody's lives have changed. Their day-to-day life has changed completely. So if you can give them something that's going to be useful to them on a day-to-day basis, that's going to make a huge difference, and you're going to get more engagement from that as a result. So as I say, just the main point really from me, a few technical things that we'll go through, but primarily there has never been a more important time to have a strong social media presence than now. Lots of the things that we may have been doing in the past, so whether it's going networking, whether it's leafleting, are options that simply aren't available to us at the moment. And social media does, of course, give you the option or the ability to be able to reach people and reach your target audiences for free inherently. So there is no more important time to make sure that you've got everything set up how you want it. It could be your shop window. It could be the only way in the next 3 or 4 weeks that anybody comes across your business. So you need to think, first of all, one of the first tips I would say to you is it's worth doing an audit of your current social media presence. It's something that's probably been on your list for weeks or months previously, but whether you're on Facebook, Twitter, whether it's your personal LinkedIn profile, whatever it is, devote some time to having a look and making sure everything reflects your brand and has the information on there that you want it to. It's very easy to set these profiles up and then to sort of ignore them and forget actually that you've got a blog on there that's a year out of date or whatever it is. So have a good look through and make sure everything is looking as you want it to. In terms of some of the other bits and pieces I would recommend, social media has had lots of different features that allow you to do things for a long time, and some of us have used them a bit, but in reality we probably haven't used them as much as we would have done or we might need to now. So the classic example of this would be live video. Now those who have seen me speak before would have heard me prattle on about live video endlessly and tell you that it is something you should all be doing. Everybody is terrified of it, and I completely understand why, because we're all worried that we're going to fall off our chair while we're speaking, or something worse. But actually, it is something that can be a very personable way of engaging with your audience, and you will tend to get more engagement by working in a format very similar to the format we're working with tonight. Whether that's live video on Facebook, whether that's on Instagram, Periscope on Twitter, live video is coming to LinkedIn very soon, which may make a difference to some of the businesses that have a more B2B element. But actually, you could create a Facebook group. You can monetize that if you want to. If you're looking for a different way of creating a new income stream, given what's currently happening, a monetized Facebook group that you can do live webinars into and engage with your audience in that way might be a way of doing something a little bit different. So live video is certainly something that I would be recommending. As Kate touched upon, you need to be providing value. So rather than just doing your normal post with a nice graphic to it, maybe do a live video. It might be a 15-minute Q&A. It might be a 15-minute interview that you're doing with somebody on best practices for working at home or something like that. It may be that it's a demonstration on how you use a piece of equipment that you have, or it might be a quick example of how you make something if you're somebody who produces products. There's lots of different ways that you can use it. That will give value to the people who follow you, but it will also increase your brand and keep them engaged at the same time. So live video is certainly something that I would be recommending. Something that a lot of us are going to be missing at the moment is networking. It's something that most businesses do regularly, and most businesses will have a monthly budget they put aside for this. The good news is you can still do this in an online format. Now, Zoom is one way of doing it, which is what we're using now. But actually think about utilizing Facebook groups, for example. Facebook groups have been around for a long time. The recent changes mean that you can join Facebook groups as a business. So it doesn't have to be your personal profile. Join those groups as your business page and engage in conversation with other businesses and other individuals in that way. That gives you a very similar element to what you get when you go to networking events. Another way of looking at it is you can do the same thing on Twitter. So actually you can take part in Twitter networking hours, which revolve around a hashtag. So for example, you've got Somerset Hour on Thursday evenings at 8 o'clock, Devon Hour on Wednesday evenings at 8 o'clock. These hours have been around for a long time, and all they are is a Twitter version of when you go networking. So these things are already in place. They're already ready for you to go and engage with other local businesses. It's just something you may not have thought about before because you've not needed to, because you've been doing it in person. Now that we're not able to do it in person, it's a new way of doing that. So Facebook groups, Twitter networking hours are definitely a couple of things that I'd be looking at. If you can no longer network, which of course we can't in the classic way, think about doing it in a different way and use your social media to do this for you. I think, again, anybody who's heard me speak before or seen any of our presentations will have heard me use our phrase, which is that you need to engage to get engagement. This has never been more important than it is now. And I think, again, touching on the point that Kate raised about providing value for your audience rather than selling to them, this is the perfect time to be going through your LinkedIn profile and commenting on other people's posts, liking content, sharing it if it's relevant to your audience. Likewise, going into Facebook groups. And if you've got a useful blog that you've written, if you've got, as ADPR have, if you've got free services that you're offering, make sure people know that these things are going on. And rather than devoting time to just pushing out content, spend time engaging with people, starting conversations, joining in those conversations. That's something that you should be doing on your social media anyway, but when we're all busy, it's much harder to do that and we tend to focus just on content. This is a really good time to move away from content and say, yes, I need that going out, but actually it's more important that I'm engaging with the business community. That's what people need to be using their social media for at the moment, and of course engaging with their current customers as part of that. Tone I've mentioned already. If you do sell products, obviously there is a balance to be had at the moment because you want to make sure that the tone of what you're doing is right. You don't want to be overly selling. That said, there are lots of shops, for example, that will have shop fronts and are in retail that will have all their products potentially at home at the moment. You can get those on your social media. So you can set up a Facebook shop, which means that people can see all of your products, they can see your prices, they can then click through to your website and either buy them if you've got a strong e-commerce platform set up, or if not, they can just ask you for the details and you can go from there. You can then link that to Instagram, which means that you'll be able to have products there as well, which will be a great way of driving website traffic. So if you've got physical products that you had in a shop, which is now closed for the short term, get those products online, get them onto Facebook, get them onto Instagram, enable the shopping features and put people in a position where in a few weeks' time, when hopefully this all starts to balance out and actually people are a bit more feeling in a bit of a stronger position, perhaps because some of these changes have come in, and they do start thinking about things like shopping again, you've got everything where it needs to be. So I think the key points really that I wanted to get across is just that lots of the things that we've been doing in different ways in the past, like networking, you can do these things by using social media. Social media is your friend at the moment. It can get a bit of a bad rep at times, but actually in a situation like this, there is no stronger element, there's no stronger way of reaching out to your target audience, and actually in a more important sense, keeping your current audience engaged. That's actually a side of social media that some people don't take much note of. They tend to just look at it as a way of getting new people through the door or into their business. Actually, it's probably a stronger avenue for keeping your current audience engaged. And at the moment, that is incredibly important because we are going to come out of this. We are going to come out the other side. Your business needs to be ready for when that happens. And as Kate touched upon, if your business has been sharing useful content, engaging content, giving people value during this difficult time, then actually when we do come out of this, it's your business that people are going to remember. So this is a really good opportunity for all the businesses out there to fine tune what they're doing with their social media, make sure their accounts are up to date, make sure they're giving something back to people. And then when we come out the other side, it's those businesses that will be in a strong position as a result. One last point, if I may. Am I right for time for a minute, Shane?
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
That's it. Just one more point, if I may. Paid advertising on social media can be extremely powerful because it's very targeted. Most importantly, at the moment, for lots of businesses, it's very cost efficient. So the sort of money that you need to put into something like Facebook advertising, for example, will tend to be considerably lower than if you were doing something like television advertising or something similar. At the moment, Facebook, Instagram, whatever it is, may be the only way that you can market your business. So actually, if you've not really thought about paid advertising before, now is the time to try it. Mm-hmm. There is something in the pipeline that Facebook are currently working on. They're producing $100 million worth of grants for small businesses that will allow you to do Facebook advertising for free. We don't know a huge amount of detail about that yet, but if you find the link, it's on our Facebook page. You can click through and you can get emails from Facebook when they make that live. So that is something, I don't know how much money businesses will get, but they might give you £50 to put towards Facebook advertising for free. And actually in our current climate, in the ways we're having to market ourselves now, that might be a fantastic way of actually reaching lots of people, which you are not necessarily able to do in the ways you have done previously. So the main points I want to get across: this is a really important time to be making the most of your social media. You must be visible. People need to be able to see what you're doing. Even if things are quieter, you need to make sure that you stay in people's minds and you stay in their eye line by being busy on social media. We're all in the same boat. We're all working in different ways. Get pictures of your kid online. If anybody saw our Facebook page last night, my little lad giggling away, you know, everybody can relate to that at the moment. So that might be content that you've looked at in the past and said, oh, you know, I'm a professional, proper business. Is that the sort of thing I'd share? Actually, at the moment, it is. That's the sort of thing that people want to see. So as Kate said, you've got to be looking at your strategy and not be afraid to bend a little bit. Give people something back, give people value. That's the most important piece of advice I think I could give. So I think that's pretty much it from me.
Brilliant. Yeah, really, really good. Thank you, Pete. Lots of good bits of information in there. And yeah, you know, it's I kind of feel that if there's one sector that's going to come out strong after all this, is going to be social media marketing. I think I feel sorry for the local pubs and the bakeries who are going onto Facebook and Twitter and telling everybody that they now do home deliveries. Unfortunately, they don't have an audience because they never did any social media in the beginning. So they're offering they're trying to pivot as a business, but no one's listening, right? And because at some point, you know, someone might have tried to sell them some social media services and they thought that wouldn't be for them.
No, and I think that's something that is very much, social media has been for some businesses seen as a luxury in the last couple of years. You say, well, it's great, but actually, what's my return on investment on that? And it can be very hard to quantify that. But actually, in times like this, it becomes clear, actually, having thousands of people who know who your business are and can see you every day has a value of its own. And that's something that people should bear in mind with their social media.
Yeah, and actually, it dovetails quite nicely into one of Kate's points about what do you do when you're a business and perhaps you don't have much to do right now, or what Jeremy was saying about having a bit of idle time and keeping on top of your admin. Well, you know, it's not exactly hard to sit on the sofa with a laptop and just engage with some of your potential suppliers, or even engaging with your competitors and things like that. You know, that's something that's probably a good use of time.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, there's always something to be doing, right? So
absolutely.
There's a couple of questions, a couple of good ones actually. So Sue, she's looking for a place to live stream. She wants to charge people for it, so she can teach classes online essentially. Any recommendations on platforms or software that can do that?
I think two things I would use. One is Zoom, which is what we're using now. The other would be Facebook. So I think it depends on what sort of format you want it to be in. If you want to be able to see everybody, very much like how we're set up here, Zoom will be the best platform for doing that. If you would rather go down the route of actually using a live video that people comment on, so a bit like on YouTube at the moment, people are commenting on the video rather than actually being able to be visible. Depends which of those formats you want. Facebook is very easy to monetize because you set up a private Facebook group, and it means that if people want to see your live video that you do into that group, they have to have paid you to do it. Otherwise, you don't accept them into there, and that's the only way that they can use it. So it's very easy to monetize things like that by using Facebook. The only issue with Facebook Live is that it's very difficult to get this interaction where you can see your audience at the same time. So if you want that interaction, Zoom will definitely work best. If you are happy to have it set up where actually you are essentially broadcasting, and then the only engagement you get from others is the comments on the video, Facebook could work really well for that as well.
Good stuff. And just to add to that as well, Sue, if you're looking to not necessarily live stream, but perhaps sell pre-recorded videos, I know teachable.com is a very popular platform that I've bought online courses off people, and they've used teachable.com, and that's a way in which you can charge for that service. So yeah, good tips there, Pete. Thank you. Next question from Andy is, what happens if your social media takes off? What tools can you use to monitor all that, just that noise and messages? I struggle with this. Not that I've got a decent following to really justify all the tools, but yeah, any tools that can help manage the chaos?
Yep, there are a few. I think it depends what platforms you're on. If you're on Facebook, make sure you've got Pages Manager, which is an app for your phone, which is completely free. It's associated with Facebook. It's the best way of monitoring conversation. So actually using Facebook on a computer, it can be quite difficult to keep going through inbox, seeing all those conversations. If you've got Pages Manager on your phone, it's really easy to keep up to date with them, and it means that you can reply to them wherever you are in a really quick and succinct way. On Twitter, there is a piece of software called Tweetdeck, which is what we use. Particularly good if you are monitoring multiple accounts, but what it allows you to do is set up different columns. So you can have one column, for example, for every time somebody is talking to you. You can have another column, which is private messages. You can have another column, which might be the name of your business, for example. So every time anybody mentions your, uses the name of your business, even if they haven't tagged you properly, you'll still see that. So if you use TweetDeck and you have it set up correctly, for Twitter, it's absolutely perfect. Hootsuite does a similar thing if you want to use that on Twitter instead. Instagram is a little bit more difficult, but if you've got an Instagram business profile, which means it's linked to your Facebook page, any comments that you get on Instagram or any messages will come through as notifications to your Facebook page as well. So you'll see them on the Pages Manager app. LinkedIn, you just need to keep an eye on it, basically.
Yeah.
So there's an element of just having to be proactive in keeping an eye on things, but TweetDeck for Twitter, Pages Manager for Facebook and Instagram, they allow you to keep an eye on things on a regular basis.
Good man. He's also mentioned as well, something you might be able to help him out with. Can you change the admin of a Facebook group from yourself to your business page?
Good question. No, not if you've created the group as your personal profile. You can still attach it to your page and it can still be run by the page, if that makes sense. But your personal profile will always remain an admin of that page, of that group, sorry. That said, if you were to remove your personal profile as an admin, as long as someone else is an admin, then the page sort of becomes an admin automatically almost. So you can remove yourself as an admin, but I would recommend you add somebody else before you do that. Just because Facebook can have some funny moments with group admins, so it's worth just being a bit careful. But yeah, you can remove yourself as an admin as long as someone else is one. That'd be my guidance.
Good stuff. Thank you. And the last question from WB Hughes, Art for Fun. That must look great on your birth certificate. Was looking. Oh, cool! This is awesome. Looking to host a live draw session for children during the day. The first session is actually drawing Sonic the Hedgehog. I actually might sign up to that. She or he mentions they were going to use Twitch to do that. Is that something you would recommend, or is there something better?
My recommendation with anything to do with live streaming would be to use Facebook. It is generally better quality than the other platforms. It's much easier to manage. You can do much more with it. I think if you were looking to do something to reach children, in all likelihood, it's their parents as well that you're going to want to be reaching, and that's the audience that you're going to find on Facebook. And Facebook gives you the option to do more with it as well, in the sense that you can broadcast it from your page, or if you want, you can create an event and then you can broadcast into that event, so only the people who subscribe to it will see it, or you can create a group and then you can do it into there. So Facebook gives you more options, and you can do more with that live video. So you can put polls into it. You can share a screen if you want to. You can do quite a lot of interesting things with live video on Facebook, whereas the other platforms, because they haven't got the money Facebook has, it's always struggling a little bit. So that would be my advice personally.
Brilliant, good stuff. And there's a lot of love on some really good answers. People thanking you for your great answers there, Pete. So good job there. Right, so moving along to the final four, and thank you so much for your patience, guys. Really, really appreciate it. And up next, we have Gareth Buckley talking about insolvency, but hopefully in a light-hearted, upbeat, pumpy kind of way, perhaps.
Thank you, Shane. Well, I'm not going to be talking about insolvency today because I don't think that's what's needed right now. I want to talk about practical steps that people can take to secure their business moving forward. I mean, there's so much in the news at the moment. Everyone's, watching at 5 p.m. every night. What's the government going to announce next? What's happening? What's the latest grant, loan, funding scheme? And these things are all great. They're all really important, and they're going to help us get our businesses through the next few months. But, it's so easy to forget about those practical steps. And these are the things that every business can do. They can do them now. It's within their control. They're not waiting on somebody to tell them how to do it. or what the rules are and whether they qualify. So for me, this is what I want people to take from this few minutes that I'm speaking, is just think about what can I do now to secure my long-term future. I'm going to focus on 3 main areas. The first being understanding your financial position, and I think Jeremy did mention some great points earlier about cash flow. I'm going to cover that as well. And then reducing costs, and just how to keep trading through the next few months. And from my perspective of obviously seeing a lot of businesses fail, I've also seen a lot of businesses that have come to me and gone on to be successful, so they didn't fail. So I've got some really good examples there. So yeah, I'm going to start with understanding your financial position. And again, as Jeremy mentioned, it's all about cash flow. Cash is king. It's knowing how much. I mean, do you know the answer to these questions as a business? Do you know how much you have in the bank right now? And do you know what's going to come out in the next few months? And I doubt many people know what's coming in, because we don't know who's able to pay us, which customers are in the same situation, which are struggling. We don't really have those ideas right now, those answers. So that's why it's really important to get a cash flow prepared, drill down into as much detail as possible to give you that clear understanding. And that's then your foundation as to what you need to do going forward. And the great thing is there are loads of free resources out there to help you, templates for cash flows. I can share some useful resources after the Q&A. You can go on the blog. I think Shay mentioned there's a blog coming out. So there is free resources that can help people with this. And and if you're struggling, you don't have to do it yourself. There's so many experts out there, such as James, for example. He probably won't thank me for this, but accountants are probably the best people to help you with your cash flow. So I know they're busy as it is, but they understand your business, and they understand numbers, so they're the best people to go to. And even when you've got your cash flow, get somebody else to look through it with you. A second pair of eyes, it's invaluable. And yeah, be realistic when working out what money is coming in. I think Jeremy made a brilliant point earlier. It was speak to your customers, find out if they can pay you earlier, find out obviously if they can pay you at all. And even if you get a negative answer, at least and you can plan for it. And I think the theme throughout all of this, with every talk that's happened, it's all about planning and being prepared. And just having the information allows you to be prepared. So once you've got to that cash flow, it can look a bit scary. You might see that you've got a big shortfall, or maybe a small shortfall, hopefully, or no shortfall at all. But at least then the steps that you need to take. So you've got that cash flow, and you're ready to do the next thing, and that's to look at the costs. And you've got to be really, really thorough with this. So you want to get down on paper every single expense that your business is paying out. And there's several different ways to do it. You could start with the biggest expenses and look through them all, or you could start with the ones that are due first, and just really go through them and ask yourself a couple of questions. Do I need to pay this right now? Is it needed for the business? If we're in a slow period or a no trading at all period, do I need this? And then can I cancel it? Depending on what it is, certain bills and expenses, they might not be necessary. And if you do cancel them and you make that decision, go online on your bank and cancel the direct debits. I know HMRC, for example, have said about VAT payments. They're giving you a payment break, but only if you physically cancel the payment. If you pay it, they'll take it. So you really want to just make sure that you do all these simple things, just to save yourself that money that's going to be so important going forward. And the next question, can you reduce or put something on hold? As a business, do you need all those software licenses if half of your staff are out on furlough? Do you need that recurring stock order? And the banks are offering so many resources as well. Do you need to pay that loan? Can you ask for a break? So there's lots of things you can do to kind of reduce your costs and put yourself in a position, because you're going to need that money to kind of get you through the next few months. And nobody really knows how long this is going to last. So the more that you've got in your war chest, the better. A few other basic things you can do there. So you ring your suppliers and ask for their help. I think we've all seen on social media how helpful other businesses have been in supporting each other through this. And again, part of that's because they want you as a customer at the end. So they know to treat you right now is a way to keep your loyalty moving forwards. One tip I would say is that I've found, especially with the banks, is that if you don't specifically mention coronavirus as the reason for the problem, then you don't get all of the support. It's like it's a magic word. As soon as you say coronavirus, they bring up a sheet full of all of these extra things that they could do for you. So it's really important to be clear that it's because of coronavirus. It's not just because, you know, you're having a tough time. It sounds very obvious, but you know, they've got computer systems, and it's kind of like you've got to tick the boxes.
Yeah.
So yeah, you've done all this and you've tried to reduce things that you can. What you're left with at the end is a list of bills that you've got to pay. And then it's about paying the ones that are the most important. So prioritize. Yeah. You might want to look at it and say, okay, my team are my most important resource. I'm going to put them at the top of the list. And taxes, they're going to go at the bottom. So I hope no one from HMRC is listening to that. But yeah, that's probably the way that most people are going to go. And just touching on employees, again, it's been mentioned a few times, but I mean, it is going to be one of the biggest expenses for most businesses. But it's one of the most important because your people are your business. You know, they're the face of your business. It's your reputation. It's, I think, how you treat them really sets out a stall. And we've seen the reaction in the press to, I can't remember his name, Martin from Wetherspoons. He's had a lot of negative press because of how he's dealt with people. It just goes to show how important engaging with your employees and communicating with them is the right thing to do. If you've got to, furlough them, if you've got to, if you're going to struggle to pay them, communicate, let them know, explain the situation, bring them in and ask for suggestions. I think Nathalie, who spoke earlier, mentioned there's so many different ways of dealing with this, and employees really do want to help because they want a job at the end of this situation as well. So they want to secure the business moving forward. If you can't physically pay them right now, but it's going to be when the furlough money comes in at the end of April, tell them. And they can take action as well. They might not pay the mortgage this month so that they've got money for food. It's just really being practical and being open and honest. And I think that's just, with all of this, with everyone, whether you're speaking to your employees, suppliers, anybody, it's just being open, honest, and trying to all work through this together. Okay, so once you've done everything that we've talked about, if you still don't have enough money, then you can look at things like finances. I'm not going to delve too deeply into this because James is going to cover this in a minute, but there are the government-backed loan schemes and things like that. If you really must do that, try to find the banks that don't insist on personal guarantees, that's where the director will be personally liable for the debt if the company couldn't pay it. There are banks that are not insisting on guarantees. A couple that I know are NatWest and RBS, but a lot are. And it would be better to get finance from somebody that's not expecting you to put your home on the line effectively. And if you can't, or you'd rather not take out a loan, then decide which payments you're going to miss. If it's a company, speak to them, explain the circumstances. And I'd like to think most people would be understanding, because I'm sure they're in the same boat as well. So yeah, it's really just about making sure that you've got enough money to keep the business going so that you're well positioned come the other end when you're out the other side. And then, so I'd just like to talk, my third and final point really is about the opportunities to keep trading. Most people have probably thought about, should I shut down the business? Should I shut down temporarily and just ride this thing out? They are sensible questions and you should ask them, but the other question you should ask is, are there other ways to keep trading? And again, a few other people have mentioned this in previous conversations. It's, there are always opportunities in times of crisis, and having that positive mindset and really being flexible and open to other opportunities, it gives you an opportunity to diversify. Every business owner, that your market better than anybody else. You're best placed to see those opportunities. I've just got a couple of small examples, and these are people I've spoken to in the last week that phoned me up panicking about what to do with their business. I said, have a think about other things that you could do. They went away, came back and said, what about this idea? And both of them were fantastic ideas, and they're actually applying them right now. So the first one was a cafe owner, and he was obviously forced to shut down. That's it. No more custom, no more income. Staff out on furlough. What do you do? he actually had a vehicle that he could convert into a mobile barista. And he's setting up a mobile coffee shop, which is going to start next month. It's going to mean that he can keep trading. And he's also setting up a scheme. It's all contactless. People pay remotely. You know, there's a little table set up when he sets up his mobile barista stand, so people don't actually come within 2 meters to collect the food. They pay it. It's all fantastic. And the other thing is, he's inviting customers to gift coffees to NHS staff. So he's going to rock up once a week, or whatever when he's going to do it. He's going to turn up and give coffees to NHS staff that are working so hard trying to, you know, help us through this crisis. So I thought that was a fantastic way to not only, you know, keep trading, but also do some good as well. And another company, similar kind of theme, and again doing good as well as trading. It was a catering company that specialised in events, and obviously every event got cancelled, no more income coming in. So they've just rediversified. They've managed to set up a food delivery service, and they've got contracts with the local NHS hospitals because they are desperate and crying out for food because staff are in there more than ever and they need someone to supply them. They've also set up a Just Giving page so that people are donating money to pay for doctors and nurses' food. So, you know, they are very specific examples, but it just goes to show that there are opportunities to keep trading, to keep going, and to make a difference to other people. And I'm sure that if everyone brainstorms, gets on social media, and, you know, has a think about these things, there are so many opportunities out there. And then my very last point, which I think it was Jeremy mentioned it, and maybe one or two other. It's time. It's the one thing that this virus has given us all is, or most of us, I should say, is time. If sales have dried up, use that time wisely. You know, plan that marketing campaign, get up to date on your accounts. You know, think creatively about that next business idea, and there are so many business resources out there, and free ones as well. So you could use this time to upskill yourself and your staff, so that when you do come out of the other end, you're in a strong position. I don't know, Shane, how am I doing for time? Have I got?
No, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, can I just add 2 more tiny points?
Do it, come on.
Very super quick. One thing I've seen on social media at the moment, there's been a lot of misinformation as well about whether people qualify for things, who does, who doesn't. And it's people that wouldn't necessarily have the answer. I think all I would say to people is make sure that who you're taking advice of is an expert, that they know their stuff and that source is reliable. It's so important that misinformation is challenged and people get the right help at the right time. And I know, you know, it's especially at times like these where people could make a decision that would end up causing their business to close. Just get the right resources and the right information. And finally, don't panic. There's lots of support out there, and you know, there's lots of people willing to help. So take advantage of that.
Brilliant.
That's me done. Thank you.
Really good. Thank you. That's some great tips there. We're just going to jump straight in. There was one comment that was made in the group, actually, just for everyone who's listening. If anyone on the live stream subscribe to the Adobe Creative Cloud software suite, so it's a bunch of products for creatives in the creative industry. Adobe are actually offering 2 months free, basically a pause on your payments for 2 months. So even if you're an existing customer, and this is like £100 a month or per person who uses it. It's incredibly expensive software, and we pay for it in our business. And with Adobe, you just go and you basically say you're going to cancel, and then when you click the cancel button, it just says, "Would you like 2 months free?" And yes, thank you very much. Take that. Yeah. And the other question, and a question that's just come through, Gareth, are there any kind of tools and services kind of in your tool belt that can help with getting a handle on business finances in general? Are there any good places?
There are so many out there. There are so many out there. I think probably the best thing to do would be for me to send a list of them so that they can go out on our blog, because cool. it very much depends on the type of business. But there are lots of general tools out there. Enterprise Nation have loads of resources. They're really good at that kind of thing. And the beauty of it is they are mostly free. So it's just knowing that they exist. So yeah, if I can send a list of these resources and we can stick them on the blog, hopefully people can.
Yep, sounds like a great idea. Okay, thank you ever so much, Gareth. Okay, and so moving on, segues quite nicely to when you're saying that you need to be wary where you get your information from. Well, we've got an expert up next. So James, appreciate you hanging out with us this evening and sticking around till close to the end. So just straight over to you, James, in accountancy and finance and all that stuff.
Exciting world of accountancy and finance. Yeah, thanks, Shane. Yeah, so as I said before, I'm just going to recap briefly on the measures that have been put in place by the government. We've all heard snippets of them, some bits more than others. A lot of the guys have touched on various things I'm going to talk about already. But yeah, I'm just going to have a quick whiz through. There's been quite a lot, so I'm going to try and keep it as quick as possible. So firstly, with employed workers, obviously Nathalie's given us some great detail on this already. So again, just really quick whiz through. But just to recap, the statutory sick pay. So if an employee or a director develops symptoms of the coronavirus and has to self-isolate, statutory sick pay can be claimed for up to 2 weeks from day one. And that's currently about £94 a week, going up to about 96 next week when we hit the new tax year. But yeah, it's available to all small employers with 250 employees or less. If that's relevant to you, obviously speak to whoever runs your payroll in the first instance. Then there's the catchily named Coronavirus Job Retention Scheme, or CJRS. And again, that's what Nathalie talked about in quite excellent detail, to be honest, all about furloughing workers that would otherwise be laid off because of the coronavirus. Again, kind of going back to what Gareth was saying, you know, all of these things are specifically because of the coronavirus, so wouldn't otherwise apply. But yeah, so those workers can be furloughed. Government will cover 80% of their salaries, subject to a monthly cap of £2,500, including employers' national insurance, employers' pension contributions. And that's currently available, backdated to the 1st of March, up until the 31st of May, currently, but may be extended depending on what happens over the coming weeks with this virus. So that's it on employed workers. Not going to say any more on that. Moving on to self-employed workers. This is obviously the big one of today, especially. We've all been waiting several days. There's been a lot of speculation about the government doing something for self-employed people. And yes, it has come today. Rishi Sunak has announced the Self-Employed Income Support Scheme, which again, it's effectively mirroring the support for employed workers under the CJRS that I just mentioned. It's going to be eligible to any self-employed individual with trading profits up to 50,000. It will be paid out as a lump sum in June, equal to 80% of the taxpayer's average monthly earnings, average monthly profits, I should say, from the past 3 years submitted tax returns, subject to a monthly cap of £2,500, and again, initially open for a 3-month period, which may be extended if this all drags on any longer. One of the main provisos on that is that you have to have submitted a 2018 to 2019 tax return, and if you haven't done so already, obviously it is late now, but you've got another month from today, 4 weeks from today, to get that submitted, and then that information will obviously be used towards assessing how much you might be eligible for. One thing that has come out of this, out of that sort of situation, and actually Robert Peston touched on it in the conference, the daily conference earlier, because you have to have a 2018-19 tax return submitted, that effectively means this rules out anybody who started a new self-employment since April last year. So if you started since then, you wouldn't have done a tax return for the previous year. So there is no solid information, financial information about your business that the government can rely on. and their pragmatic approach is essentially that there isn't enough time. It's just not possible to go out, visit every business, review management accounts and figures, etc. So unfortunately, it does look like people who have set up new self-employments in the past year are going to lose out on this, unfortunately. But that's where we are with that, and that one is going to be automatic. No need to apply for it, no need to contact HMRC. They will be getting in touch if you are eligible. No timescale on that yet, but hopefully soon. Obviously, the fact that it's not going to be paid until June is going to be a big consideration for a lot of people as well. That's quite a lot of time if you've got no money coming in at the moment. But hopefully with a combination of the other measures in place, we'll be able to navigate through that. Also with self-employed workers, then the fallback position has been universal credits, which was announced last week. So there's been a relaxation of the earnings rule for self-employed people. So universal credits are now generally available for most individuals on a low income, as long as they don't have household savings of £16,000 or more. In addition to that, the basic amount payable has been increased by £20 a week from next week, from the new tax year. So that's actually going to be worth approximately an additional £1,000 per annum for each individual. So that is quite substantial. And you may have heard on the news, there's been around 500,000 new claimants of universal credits since the outbreak began a week or so ago. So this really is out there. A lot of people are utilising this, and you know, it really is a lifeline. It really is the only lifeline for some at the minute. So if you think it would apply to you, then please do go to gov.uk/universal-credit. There's loads of information on there about that, and I'd encourage you to do that as soon as you can if you think it will apply. Also, just briefly, if you're self-employed and you have developed symptoms of the virus and have had to self-isolate, my understanding is that you'll be able to very simply and easily access the £94 a week, the sort of equivalent statutory sick pay rate through the universal credit system. So again, please do look at the gov.uk website for that. Also then, for self-employed people, deferment of tax payments. Again, these have been mentioned briefly by others this evening, but just to recap, VAT payments, so all payments in the next quarter can be deferred until the end of the financial year. So that's 31st March, possibly 5th of April 2021. So that means no businesses will have to pay any VAT at least until the end of June. And those can all be deferred till March next year. Also, for income tax, if you're due to make a payment on account in July, that also can be deferred now until 31st of January 2021, when you would otherwise be making your next tax payment. So that's 6 months breathing space on that, potentially 9 months breathing space on the VAT. Again, they're both automatic. You don't need to apply. You can just take advantage of those deferments automatically. But as Gareth mentioned, if you have a direct debit in place to pay them, do make sure that you cancel that, because otherwise the payment will just be taken as normal, and that's that. So if you need it, do look into that, cancel the direct debit, and plan accordingly, because as I say, these are deferments. The money will still need to be paid to HMRC in due course. So again, just kind of harking back to what everybody else has been saying, consider your cash flow. And you know, if you're deferring this payment, then make sure you know how you are going to pay it. You know, don't just put it on the shelf and think, I'll worry about that in 9 months' time. Think, okay, you know, maybe it's 2 to 3 months. Can't really do anything because we're in the peak of the virus situation. But from there, consider what the additional payment, deferred payment was, and put a bit aside each month to plan for that. There's no point saving your business now if you get stuck in 6 months, 9 months time and have no cash at that point. Again, just echoing others, cash is king, it always is. Making a loss in a business doesn't necessarily drive you under, but having no money does every time. Aside from that, any other taxes, if you've got any other tax liabilities at the minute that you're struggling to make because of the COVID-19 situation, HMRC have got a dedicated helpline where you can talk to them about that, set up payment plans, potentially get any penalties, interest cancelled, etc. So if you need to, do call them. That's on 0800 0159 559. And that's obviously on the HMRC website if you need it as well. Business rates and grants, probably heard about these. So there will be no business rates payable throughout 2020 to 2021 for all businesses in the retail, hospitality and leisure sectors. So that's shops, restaurants, cafes, bars, hotels, gyms, cinemas, etc., etc. Again, that's automatic, no need to apply for that. Also, for those businesses in the retail, hospitality and leisure sectors, there is a possible 25 or grant up to £25,000 per property for those with smaller premises, and that's defined with a rateable value between 15,000 to 51,000. So again, if that applies to you, if you have business premises and you operate in those sectors, do look into that. You'll need to apply for that one to your local authority, which presumably for the most of you watching is going to be Somerset, West and Taunton, but obviously wherever you are, your local authority is the one you need. Finally, on this, there's also a £10,000 grant being made available for all businesses. That's all businesses, doesn't matter what sector, but that pay little or no business rates at the moment because they are eligible to claim small business rates relief or rural rates relief. That one's automatic. Again, you don't need to apply for that. Your local authority will be in contact, hopefully early April. The latest we've heard on that is that central government are going to be issuing guidance out to the local authorities in the first week or so of April. So hopefully we should all hear more on that very soon as well. Okay, so if grants and deferring your payments, etc., isn't enough, and you are seriously considering that you need a loan to tide you over, again, very catchily named Coronavirus Business Interruption Loan Scheme. It is a loan scheme that has been put in place by the government to support businesses who are facing interruptions because of the coronavirus. So these have been available since this Monday, the 23rd, and they're coming via all major banks up to a maximum loan facility of 5 million. The majority of UK businesses will be eligible with turnover, it's eligible to businesses with turnover of up to 45 million per annum. There's going to be no interest charged on these loans for the first 12 months, and they'll be much more accessible than your normal loans because the government will be acting as guarantors for 80% of the loan. So it obviously gives the banks a lot more confidence to loan money to you. Having said that, remember this is a loan, it's not a grant, and you will remain liable for 100% of the debt. Although the government is acting as guarantor for 80% of it, you will still be liable for 100% of it. Also, again, it's a loan, so they're not just handing these out. They are much, much easier to obtain than normal loans, but viability will need to be demonstrated to your bank before they make any guarantee on it. And that will typically mean providing past accounts, up-to-date management accounts, and forecast profit and loss accounts, all clearly showing that your business was sound before this outbreak, what impact the interruption is going to have on your business, and how the loan is going to be spent and used to support the business through the current situation and back into a healthy situation at the end. Again, on that, obviously speak to your bank in the first instance to find out what your specific bank is doing, what the process is, and then presumably speak to your accountant about getting forecast profit and loss figures together and everything that you're going to need for that, if you think it is sort of the way forwards for you. Okay, just wrapping up kind of a couple of smaller bits now. Also, if you have a limited company and the coronavirus outbreak has affected your ability to get your accounts done on time, if you're quite close to the deadline, filing deadline now, you can apply for a three-month extension to Companies House, and they have just yesterday confirmed they're setting up a fast-tracked online system to facilitate this, which should take just 15 minutes. Again, speak to your accountant if you're unsure about that at all. IR35 may mean nothing to a lot of you, but some of you will certainly be familiar with this. Big reforms have been in place approaching this year end, so 6th of April, in just over a week's time. There were going to be big reforms to the whole IR35 situation. Due to the coronavirus, this has now been delayed until the 6th of April 2021. So whilst that's been quite a big thing on many people's minds, you can potentially shelve that for another year. Worry about this now, we'll think about that later. Finally, mortgage rent holidays, just a bit of practical advice. It's been touched on already. Speak to your lender, speak to your landlord. They are there if you need them, make use of them. And insurance claims, if you have business insurance, check your policies for pandemic cover or government ordered closure cover. You may well be eligible to make a claim on the insurance that you have. So dig out your files, have a look at your paperwork, and do what you can. Okay, I've no idea how long I've been going there, probably over 10 minutes, but I'll shut up now.
No, that was fantastic. Thank you. And yeah, you overran maybe the most. You might have won the prize. However, such an important topic. And there are many questions, and I fear that the answers might be longer than shorter. So it could be that we might have to circle back round, and maybe we'll drip feed those answers through social media and Twitter and stuff. Cool. It might be in the interest of everyone to progress on now, unfortunately. But thank you, James. Honestly, the feedback has been fantastic. Apparently, you were clearer than the guys on stage on the BBC.
Thank you.
That's good. So it's honestly fantastic. Thank you. And we will follow up with those questions and answers, because some of them are they're good questions. Unfortunately, we're just running close to the edge now of our timing this evening. So moving on shortly, and once again, the last two of the evening, Rob and James, thank you so much. We never really planned the format of this. Didn't realize that this was just going to be, for some of us, just sort of 2 hours of sitting here, and I really appreciate it. But obviously, as long as your back's still good, and you can work on your posture perhaps. But no, let's just dive straight in. Yeah, the guns. So let's just dive straight in with Rob. I know he's got some cool stuff to say. There's still lots and lots of people. We've got 80 odd people still listening in. So it's been a great evening, and I'm really loving the engagement. So let's go on, Rob. Take it away.
Cool. Thank you very much, Shane. Yeah, a few points I was going to make have been touched on already, which is just goes to show we can double down on it and just see how important they are. I heard a great fact last week. I'm not sure if it's true or not, but I like to believe it's true. That Shakespeare wrote a lot of his great works whilst he was in isolation from the plague. And I like to know that actually we've got this great opportunity in front of us if we just embrace it as that. And a few people have touched on that already in terms of the time we've got and how can we deal with it. So we were tasked with the welfare side of looking after people. And from our point of view, we had two main issues. The issue of the home working side of life, and then the uncertainty around the world around us and what we're going to do. So just to touch very quickly on a couple bits on each element to it. Home working has been around for years. It's not a new thing. So when we put 300 people or nearly 300 people home working, it wasn't so much of a challenge in terms of can they do it? And Jeremy touched earlier on the story of could we work from home in a call center environment? the board of people said no, that was actually just a story that wasn't really helpful for us. And a lot of what we're seeing right now are unhelpful stories rather than any kind of fact at all. When I was growing up, the media used to tell me what the facts of the day were, and I used to make my own opinion based on that. There seems to be these days that the media gives me an opinion and I decide if it's factual or not. And that seems to be the way we've shifted over the last couple of years, in terms of we're left with dealing with a lot of conjecture in terms of what may or may not be true, and it just doesn't help us, especially in this time we're in now. That period of uncertainty isn't a good one for us. But the home working side of it, if you consider it to be a skill, and a lot of the things I coach, a lot of things I talk about are skills. The ability to homework, to set your routines, to set your disciplines, your practices are skills. And from our point of view as a company, we never got a chance to practice it en masse. So we suddenly had on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, people working from home who had no idea how to do it. And the biggest challenge for them was, how do I set it up right? So what is it I need to do? Do I still shower and go to my lounge in terms of, am I still going to work? What do I look like in terms of lunch breaks? And how do I deal with my life? So from the point of view of our leaders, whenever you have uncertainty, or when you have a line of sight issue in any kind of relationship, whether it's personal or business, you have to work slightly harder. And from the leader's point of view, what does harder look like? No idea, because it depends on who you're leading and the business that you're in terms of what harder looks like. You need to work slightly smarter. And I think it was Kate touched on earlier, all bets are off in terms of what normal was last week, 2 weeks, a month ago, is nowhere near what normal is now. So if you had somebody who wanted a catch up with their leader once a month, that might become once a day right now, because they might need it. So from the leader's point of view, every conversation I have with leaders in the last week has been, when you're speaking to your people, the answer is yes. Now, what's your question? What do you need from me? And I'll make sure I do it. In business, my background was sport, as many of you will know. And my big thing about leaders in businesses is that leaders tend to work on a 70-30 ratio. 70% of my time, I've got something to do, some work to output, something to achieve in the business. And then 30% of my time, I get to lead my people. And I've got a real bugbear with it, because sport always has this 100% leadership idea that you bring in world-class people to look after world-class sportsmen. And this manager concept doesn't really exist. If we adopt that 70-30 principle and say that's what normal looks like for us, normal's gone. So flip it the other way around. And actually, I can only deliver 30% of my output like I normally need to do, because 70% of my time needs to be spent on looking after my people. Because we have two problems. We have a line of sight problem. Everyone's feeling quite isolated and quite alone. Whether they're working from home or not working at all, or furloughed, they're isolated, but there's still a responsibility of us as leaders and as a business. And we've got massive uncertainty. The world around us has changed quite a lot. And a few people have said so far tonight, when we go back to normal, or what does normal look like, it might not be normal anymore. So, and people don't know. And because you don't know when it's going to end and what it's going to look like afterwards, that's what drives most of the anxiety, or most of the welfare or wellness issues that you might start seeing with people around about this time. And a few people have touched on the idea that what's in our control. And there's one thing I wanted to share with you, you guys tonight. So doing myself out of a job, sharing loads of free coaching advice and tips. Shane, I was one of those people that started webinars this week, dealing with companies and offering free services. It's a good time to actually just be sharing content around and helping out. And similarly, if anyone wants to touch base off the back of this and ask some more support, advice, coaching tips, absolutely fine, because we're here in an environment to help each other. But this idea of what's in our control comes down to what I'm hearing quite a lot right now are stories or questions that people can't answer. So things that have come up from our business in the last week: what does normal look like? Is my job safe? When will this lockdown end? When can I go outside and be normal again? Will my health be okay? Will my friends or family be okay through this? What on earth is furlough leave, and does it really apply to me? All of these things are coming up from our people, and most of them are questions that you can't answer, or they are statements or stories that might not be true. And if they're not true, if they're not factual, it just becomes unhelpful for us. So one tip I share with leaders, and we've shared it as a business, is this idea that we can let go of things that are unhelpful for us. And we can try and find some mindfulness or some peace around some things that might be going on. So if you ask yourself 3 questions, and this is the coaching bit, this is the process that goes through the mindfulness sense of, can I let go of something? So your 3 questions will be: is it out of my control? Yes, no, or maybe. Is there something I can do about it? Yes, no, or maybe? Does it bring me unhelpful feelings, thoughts, or emotions? If you've got any yeses to any of those three questions, then you should be able to say right now, it's just a thing. It's a thing that exists. Either I can let go of it because I can't do anything about it. It's making me feel bad when I don't want to feel bad. Or there's actually something I can do so I can get on and do it and take action. Those are things in my control. It's easier said than done. And it's very hard in a 10-minute session to try and position this right. But if we start thinking like this, that thinking process again is a skill. And as a skill in sport, you find a skill, you isolate it, you practice it and practice it and practice it so that when you come to need it, it's there and you can rely on it. All of these things that are skills, the first time we did it, we didn't know how to. If everybody sat at home, I can't see you do this, which is really weird, but everyone sat at home, do me a favor, cross your arms for me. I'm going to assume you're going to do this, by the way, because I can't see you doing it. Cross your arms for me, and now cross them the other way. That's what it feels like when you're trying something for the first time. It feels a bit weird, it feels a bit clunky. But if you did that every day for a month, it will become the norm for you, and you'll just think, oh yes, it's just a way of doing it. It's a muscle memory. And the same thing for our brains, it becomes a muscle memory. So if we can get through those three questions with any yeses, it's either in my control, it's out of my control, or it's bringing me unhelpful thoughts or feelings, we can then move on to a second part, which is, what do I want to think? Or what do I want to feel? Most people, when they wake up in the morning, don't wake up and think, I want to feel uncertain, I want to feel afraid, I want to feel scared, I want to feel like there's no future that I want here. You normally wake up and think, actually, if I ask myself the question, I think that I want to feel happy, peaceful, calm, contented, relaxed. Is, again, much easier said than done. But all of that comes from stories. So when will this end could become a story of this will end at some point. That's a more helpful story, because of course it will. The lockdown will end at some point. Will my health be okay? That's in my control. All I can do is take the steps to make sure my health is okay. I can isolate myself. I can make sure I eat healthily. I can drink healthily, whatever it might be. Will my friends and family be okay? Pass on the advice to them. But sometimes that's out of your control in terms of what actions they're going to take. So sometimes if we change these stories, in terms of what we're thinking, because what we think drives how we feel drives how we behave. If we change these stories of what we're thinking right now and just say, I can make it into a more helpful story, that's a phrase, more helpful story, that we hear around our business quite a lot. And it's a phrase I'm using with people quite a lot now, because there's so much conjecture in terms of what this could or couldn't look like, what this will or won't look like. And it's been the media way for a few years now, where we get given just these opinions, just these thoughts. 24-hour news has not really helped us in this sense, because we have to fill the airwaves with something. And then we're left just trying to decide. So more helpful stories, again, will help us position it in a more helpful way. And then thinking about the stories I tell myself, how I want to choose to feel, what I'm going to choose to think, and then what can I do? So sometimes you think there's nothing I can do about it. I just want to be relaxed and think it will be okay. And from a welfare point of view, from our people, that's been the biggest thing that's driven it, in terms of when people have phoned us up and said, you know what, I'm really anxious, I'm really nervous about this, I'm really uncertain about my future. A lot of it's come from those places where there's stuff that's not factual, stuff that's not true. You can't reassure people. You can't say, is my job safe? I don't know. Because that's just the nature of where we are right now. But we can change stories in terms of, I can do all I can to make sure my job is protected moving forward, or a business can do all I can to be protected moving forwards. But it comes back to that point again of, we just need to work slightly harder and smarter when dealing with our people, to say that there's so much going on in their lives right now. Every single aspect of their life is changed by some degree, and that's so many variables moving at once. It's very hard to say how I manage you a month ago will be exactly the same as now. It's not. Nothing is the same as it is. And we'll find things that work moving forward. Like Jeremy said, doing video calls once a week. My industry, training has certainly changed. I've done webinars all week this week, and it's been amazing. I've loved it, but I've never thought to do it before. Yeah. Fixed thinking existed, that people had to be in a room with me talking to them at the same time. But actually, all bets are off in terms of what industry looks like moving forwards. So that's my tips and advice on welfare. The one thing that made me smile this week was, there was conversations around, we need to give people advice on exercise and diet and hydration and all these things. And somebody phoned me up and said, you didn't really care about this a month ago, so why are you caring about me now? In terms of what I ate a month ago wasn't important to you, but yet now you'll give me all this advice on what I should be eating. Just be careful we're not overloading people and adding to anxiety. If you keep asking people if they're anxious, they'll become anxious. If you're overloading them and saying, mental health's a really big problem right now, they'll find the reason why it's a problem, because that's what they'll put their mind, they'll start thinking. The general premise of an optimism concept or a mindfulness concept is, what you focus on, you get. So if you're focused on the fact that mental health is a big issue right now, you will see more issues where mental health could become affected. If you tell yourself the story that actually, whilst mental health is a factor, there's a great way through this. And stories like the Shakespeare story of we've got an amazing amount of time to put ourselves in a great position moving forwards and come out of this swinging, to use a boxing concept, it will really help us. But the more you overload and nanny state people at the moment, sometimes the harder it can be, or the worse it can be, because you're making an issue where there wasn't an issue before. And that's me done. I think I'm on, if not, I've pinched some time back.
Wow, no, I could listen to that all night. Honestly, that was brilliant. If not, I'm sure you guys have all thought of this, many times over, but I really think you need to be on the camera more, and you need to be sharing all this information on LinkedIn in little bite-sized formats. I think it'd be a great little activity and great to, drive some of the engagement on foundations and other things that you guys are up to. I think, yeah, you come across really well. It's very, very good. I was just sat back actually just listening to all that. Really, really good advice. And lots of people are really agreeing with me as well, saying, that was really insightful. So thank you. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Right. Last but not least, thank you so much, James, for sticking around, hanging out with us. So you're the last one of the evening, and yeah, take it away, buddy.
Thanks, Shane. Over the last 2 hours, my home office envy has grown to another level. So I certainly need to up the game, looking behind you. So yeah, I just want to share a few minutes of my experience that I've seen as a business owner, and I guess also working in the industry for just over 22 years now in terms of the digital and the creative side. That's both as an employee, as a freelancer and a contractor, and in the last 12, 13 years as an agency owner. So I guess initially with my kind of agency, business owner kind of head or hat on rather, last week when everything started to kick off, and there's a lot of what Jeremy said in here that kind of feeds into this. Tuesday, Wednesday last week, which was tough for a lot of business owners. On the Wednesday morning, I had a very big catch up with my board of directors, and I think it became clear, and I'm sure a lot of businesses were doing it around the UK, with the conversations that they would have immediately with their suppliers, working at their supply chain, their clients and partner relationships. And there's just one conversation that I had during that Wednesday morning, or Wednesday afternoon actually, that I'd like to share that stayed with me. And I think will probably stay with me for a very, very long time. And that's with a client of mine that has been probably working with us for over a decade now. And I think we've supported each other as best we can over that period of time. And I think absolutely highlights the importance of the relationships that you build as you build a business, and all forms of life, obviously. But he had a very difficult conversation with his team. He's got a very successful large agency based in London. And yeah, he had a very, very emotional time speaking to his team. Some of the people that he'd had in that business have been with him for over 20 years. And the one thing he said to me was, he said, James, look, the actions that we now take as leaders and as people in general will define us for many, many years to come. And I think it can be sometimes overrated within situations and other crisis moments that we've maybe gone through. But I absolutely think that he's right. And it's something that I wanted to communicate to my team. And I think just the extension of that, and this has been picked up quite a lot tonight around cash flow. And it's a natural instinct of a business owner, especially if you're operating, a sizable organization with which you're going to protect the cash immediately. And I've heard quite a lot from business owners. I've been on so many webinars this week, and it's been fantastic as a community kind of coming together and supporting each other. And I've heard a number of business owners say to me that they have, literally kind of closed the door and protecting that cash. Now, I understand that, I can see the logic behind that. But also I think there is a sense of responsibility for those relationships that you would have built up over many, many years, especially on those supply chains with which, you know, that open, honest kind of conversation that you need to have in order to keep the finances moving and liquid through our economy. And this, over the next few weeks and few months, I think will be vital, because there will be businesses, because of that reason, that will start to fall, and there will be obviously jobs that will be lost off the end of that, off the back of that. So I think, you know, and I've had some, myself and my directors have had to, and I'm sure everyone's in the same position, but have had some very, very difficult conversations. I'm very pleased with the outcome of a lot of those conversations. And yeah, my main point really just on that is that those relationships that we have built over the last 10, 12 years, and I know that everyone would have feel the same if they've got a business, they become even more important now. I mean, the next month or so, I think you will really see how strong those relationships are. And we're certainly seeing that as a business. My next point is, and it's been picked up a lot by the panel tonight, and there's been some really good suggestions, especially from Kate and Pete. And, you know, I've experienced the, I guess the dot-com, I started my industry, you know, late 90s. So I saw the dot-com boom. I was part of an amazing startup. We grew within a 12-month period from 3 people to over 300 people. And so I've seen rapid, extreme growth, and also the decline of that very quickly off of situations such as this. Not that we've ever obviously experienced something like this before. But the one thing that seems to be a common thread, and it's been picked up a few times, is that the way that brands conduct themselves and businesses conduct themselves, I think will have a very long-lasting effect moving forward. And I think even if they recover, if they are not doing the right things, if they are not communicating, not just internally to their teams, but externally looking at their marketing, has been mentioned tonight a few times. You know, I have received so many automated pieces of content in the last 4 or 5 days. You know, that would be an immediate place, whether it be through your social or other kind of content channels that I would be looking at. And I've also had the question come to me in terms of, you know, what do you do in a situation like this around selling? You know, are there the moral questions that you need to answer around that? And, you know, I look at it in a very, very simple way, and hopefully it's something that's addressed for every business when they go out there to market and sell themselves. And that is that you need to define your core values that you currently hold as a business owner, but also as a business. And you need to appreciate exactly what's going on in the world. I mean, you know, you've got to be acting, your sales needs to be taken into consideration, and you have to have the kindness, the support and the guidance for others that are struggling through this. But I absolutely believe you need to keep the lights on, and you need to be doing everything you can to keep your business and survive this very difficult period. Because, you know, if you're willing to kind of shut the door, you know, and kind of just let this wash over you, I'm sorry to say it's going to be a very, very, very tough ride through. So I would say absolutely you need to do that. But there are some brands out there that I've seen in the last few days that have done horrendous things. I'm not going to mention them because I'm not quite in the position now to take on a court case. But yeah, I think we must always try and do the right thing. My last couple of points, which are kind of tied in together, and again, this is the kind of, I guess, my main piece that I wanted to get across, and it's something that Jeremy kind of spoke about really well. And I don't know, maybe it's just, you know, the born fabric of entrepreneurs, but you know, through these challenges, you really do see the definition of great leaders and great businesses, and the opportunities that will come off the back of this. Now, I've spent, you know, like I said, you know, 20 odd years as a creative and in the digital field. We are so beautifully placed with the talent, not just in the region, but across the nation in terms of us bouncing back from this. Out of all adversity comes huge opportunities. You know, I started the agency that we're now running strong now, you know, a couple of months before the financial crisis. And yes, you will see a very different landscape. You will operate in a very, very different way. But I think the period now over the next couple of months, as has been mentioned by a few people, now is the time to really dig deep. Now is the time to really look at the ship and work out what it is that you want to become, and looking at new services and new opportunities, collaborating with other, even competitors, because I think there'll be a lot of businesses that will start coming together, which I think will be a great opportunity to work on a variety of different kind of projects. But that collaboration needs to start quite quickly, and that's from brands and businesses, agencies, and freelancers. And you've got to remember that off the back of even the last financial crisis, there are incredible tech giants that we are using every single day that came off of that 2 or 3 year really difficult financial period. You look at kind of Slack, Pinterest, Uber, Dropbox, Airbnb, WhatsApp. All of these billion-dollar businesses came off of that very, very difficult time. So that kind of leads me on, I guess, to my last and probably main point, really, just because I've had so many conversations this week with people that creatives, strategists, people that are, videographers, copywriters, branding experts. I held a webinar yesterday that had 10 agency owners across the South, and collectively we were looking at probably 45 to 50, and that's just in a relatively small group of incredibly talented people that have been furloughed in the last 4 or 5 days. Now, God willing, every one of those employees will kind of come back into the agency and be able to support what they're doing. But in that period that they have now, especially creatives, and I really do understand this because I am, at the heart of creative, you have to have projects that you really need to feel are purposeful and to keep your skills going. So I urge anyone that's in that situation, and I think there's going to be a lot more over the weeks and months that are ahead of us, is come together as a unit and as a community and try to help others in the ways that you can. We are a nation of innovators. We are a nation of creative people and engineers. We can create products and opportunities, whether it be charitable, non-for-profit, or even if it's like it's been mentioned earlier today in terms of, just lifting, the employees and the teams that are kind of fighting so hard to keep the businesses forward. Off the back of those types of relationships that are going to be built, I think you'll absolutely be able to build some incredible projects. But more than that, I think you'll build relationships, and my career kind of worked out in the same way. You will actually build careers off the back of it. So this is the time now, and I've spoken to a couple of people because unfortunately we had to have a handful of our creatives go through this, be part of this scheme as of Monday. And I've worked hard in the last couple of days just to ensure, because obviously that's they want to fight, as we all do, in terms of keeping our businesses moving forward. But it's a great opportunity for what I think could be actually tens of thousands of creatives and all different types of talent to actually come together to create something quite remarkable. So that's kind of, I guess, my main piece really, is that have hope off the back of this. If you're doing the right things in terms of the structure of your business, we're in an industry that I think is so well positioned. You just need to be thinking outside the box. And yeah, if you're still hungry at trying to go out there at the other side of this, and we don't know when that will be, I believe the opportunities will be abundant. The last quick thing I want to say, Shane, is which I know you and Jeremy are aware of, and I think probably Kate as well, is that there is a real need to support business owners at this moment in time, as well as everyone. There's a huge amount of pressure with what's going on, not just within their professional life, but also what's going on at home as well. So there's a WhatsApp group that I set up, and I'm sure there's multiple other channels out there. But if anyone ever wants to reach out for whatever reason, in terms of for guidance, support, or just a conversation in terms of what they're doing, absolutely kind of give me a shout. But yeah, that's it for me.
Yeah, no, fantastic. And thanks for pointing that one out, James. Yeah, we're going to link to that in some way with WhatsApp, because yeah, we've come across some really interesting channels, haven't we, recently, of people coming together and collaborating. And wow, what great words to finish this evening off. Something really encouraging, really positive. Yeah, for me personally, I think I've come off this tonight just feeling really hopeful and optimistic, and actually hungry is quite a good word. That's one of the words I'm going to take away this evening, is that. And yeah, you finished that one off perfectly, buddy. So thank you ever so much. I think there's still 60 odd people listening along. So I think we've done something right this evening. So that's fantastic. And it's been a real team effort. So I'm really, really appreciative. I think we're going to close it off here and say goodnight and have that nightcap or whatever. But if anyone's got any final words, anyone wants to say anything. I mean, some of us have been quiet for like the last 90 minutes, which for someone like Jeremy must be absolute torture. Absolute torture. So if there are any closing words, the floor is yours. If not, let's part ways. Anyone? Jeremy, you all good? Everyone's good? No, time to go home now. All right. Well, thank you ever so much, everybody. This is pre-recorded. You'll be able to watch it back. Follow along on Digital Taunton for more updates. If the feedback has been good around this evening, we'll look to do this again, or maybe we'll tweak the format or whatever.
There is one thing, sorry.
I knew it. I knew it.
There is one thing. For those 60 that are watching and you've enjoyed tonight, then do subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. Yeah. And although the podcast is only one at the moment, the second one got cancelled because of what was going on, and we've had to focus on our business. We'll be certainly putting some energy into that. Do subscribe to the podcast as well. And I'd just like to thank the panel here. It's been a long night, and particularly actually, I know we're all focusing on our businesses, and this has been put together really quickly and couldn't be done without you guys being taken away from your business. So really appreciate that, and appreciate all the guys hanging on and everyone else that came to visit. So thanks very much, and just keep safe, everyone.
Absolutely. Good night, everybody. Thank you ever so much. Thank you. Good night.